Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Dustin Jackson. Hello.
Hello, Dustin. Oh my god, is it time for another Donkey Kong Bananza episode?
No, but wait. Yeah, now it is. We had to wait a couple seconds, but now it's time.
Oh, damn it. Yeah, sorry. I haven't synced up my watch correctly.
You jumped the gun a little bit there.
It's because I don't wear a watch.
Sassafras?
Yeah. No, see, I realize how this looks, right? We're doing yet another episode on this Donkey Kong Bananza game. I mean, that's quite a bit this season. And the thing about us doing another Donkey Kong Bananza episode is that it is a new Donkey Kong game, and it's coming out in just under 2 months. So the reason we're doing so many episodes about Donkey Kong Bananza is that prior to this season of the Kongversation, we've never been able to discuss Donkey Kong Bananza. It's something new. It's something, if you'll pardon the term, fresh. And it's honestly a little bit weird and titillating in all the right ways that you hope for, that we have a big new game to discuss here on the Kongversation. I'm not accustomed.
Me neither. I'm so not used to it. But you know what, Hyle? I think now is a much better time to have so many Donkey Kong Bananza episodes than it would have been like a few months ago before we knew the game existed.
I agree. Yeah, that would have looked pretty damn foolish of us to, be speaking about this game so confidently that we didn't even know existed in this form.
Yeah, I mean, it would have ended up that we were correct, but boy, that would have been a big gamble.
No, look, I know how this looks. Yeah, I'm just trying to ride the numbers. We're getting a lot of attention and we're drawing in both new audience members and returning audience members because of this new 3D Donkey Kong adventure. And yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, I want to ride this wave while it's high, but I'd also be pretty damn pathetic at my job as an independent Donkey Kong journalist if I didn't want to talk about the new Donkey Kong game. Instead of doing, I don't know, a spotlight episode for Mario Party 5 or whatever I'd be doing right now if it wasn't for this hype cycle that we're in. So, yeah.
Thank God.
Don't worry if you enjoy us faffing about with other topics. We've got topics that you don't care about coming up. I guarantee it. Jeff and I are going to be discussing Sea of Thieves Season 15. And then Jeff and I are going to be discussing the game Dunk Dunk. So don't worry. You're going to be tuning out soon enough. But on this episode, I wanted to, before we get another Bonanza trailer, before we get much in the way of new information about the game, I wanted to really wring out the last remaining drops from that first trailer, from the demo that has been circulating at the Nintendo Switch 2 experiences and that the Nintendo Treehouse played in the 2 days following the reveal. And I wanted to stop, really take it all in, and assess. And I wanted to really get into specifically our Donkey Kong Bananza hopes and our Donkey Kong Bananza fears.
My Donkey Kong Bananza fear is that the boogeyman is in it.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I can't get to sleep at night because I'm afraid the closet door is creaked open a little bit.
I don't think it's likely that the boogeyman will be in there, but we don't know yet.
We don't know. There's so much we don't know. And I realize, for us, Donkey Kong Bananza hopes, that would just be going down the character list and saying, oh, do we hope Barnacle Bear is in it? Yeah, we hope Barnacle Bear is in it. Do we hope Bachelor Bear is in it? Yeah, we hope Bachelor Bear is in it. Do we hope Barter Bear is in it? Yeah, we hope Barter Bear is in it.
Just go down the list of DKU characters.
Yeah, so we're not going to be doing that, but we will be getting into some specifics. We will be getting into things we do really want to see. If we have to really fight and advocate for something, and it's too late to do that. The game's going to launch July 17th. But if we have to, stand up for certain things we'd want to see, this is what we're prioritizing. And on the flip side of that, what are the things that keep us up at night besides the boogeyman? What are the things that, as hyped and excited as we are for this game, as Donkey Kong fans entering a new era of Donkey Kong, what are the things that we are nervous about? So we'll be doing that. It'll be a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of sour.
That really is the best combo, though. Like Sour Patch Kids?
Sour Patch Kids, yeah, sure. It's great at the beginning of the movie, and then you keep chomping on them, and then by the end of like the first 20 minutes of the movie, you realize you've eaten the entire box and you want to vomit.
Oh man, Hyle, that reminds me. Have you ever had sour Skittles?
Well, no, I can't actually eat. No, I can eat Skittles. I can't eat. It's Starburst. I can't eat, but I've never had the sour Skittles.
I used to eat sour Skittles so much that it would make the side of my mouth numb on account of sucking on so many sour Skittles. And my hope is that's not in Donkey Kong Bananza.
Yeah, the Donkey Kong forces you to suck on something sour. We don't know what the Switch 2 game cards taste like yet, though.
Maybe they taste like sour Skittles.
They might. I mean, that's going to be the first thing so many people do when Mario Kart World launches June 5th. They're going to be slurping on those game cards. Trying to
live cartridge tasting stream.
Oh yeah. I would do it, but being a strict vegan, I don't know, what they're slathering on that. If there's like a healthy coating of beef fat on Mario Kart World, I can't be putting that in my mouth.
Right. I mean, they put the cow in Mario Kart World. Maybe cows are just going to be the theme of the system.
Yeah. It's actually made with discarded beef products from the butcher shop. Anyway, we'll be getting into all of that on this episode of the Kongversation. Before we launch into it, though, I wanted to quickly address something that has been transpiring in our realm of the news this week, and it cuts pretty close to home for our fandom. I just wanted to briefly bring up what's been transpiring at Playtonic Games this past week. Now, keep in mind that this is a developing story, and I've been asking around, I've been, taking notes and trying to get a clear picture of what the situation actually is. A lot of it is still hearsay and whispers. So it's something I would want to be very cautious about before I just launch into a rant. But we do know that there are mass layoffs at Playtonic. And, I've heard a couple different figures quoted, but doing the math, it could be anywhere up to 30% of their staff cut. And I'm hoping that's like the high figure, and then but all the same, people are losing their jobs. And I'm not going to go down the list of who I know has been laid off or who's at risk potentially. Because these are real fucking people, and the last thing I want to do is sensationalize or even profit off of what's happening right now. I want to give everybody afflicted by it their space, and, it's up to them how much they publicize this at this moment in time. But this is obviously a huge torpedo to the side of Playtonic's lofty expansion plans and I guess their roadmap that they have been laying out for the past several years. And, I have a lot of emotion about what's happening now as a fan, as somebody who considers some of the people at Playtonic to be friends, and some people I just admire and look up to from afar. So even if the studio does recover from this and they keep making games for years to come, this is still irrefutably something that absolutely, positively sucks.
Right.
And you know, as a fan of Playtonic, I know how people who are also fans of Playtonic want to think at a time like this. They want somebody to blame. They want something to be sort of this fulcrum of all their negative emotions and say it's their fault. I mean, we've seen it so many times in other situations like this, but at this point in time, I'm still unclear. Is it Tencent, the giant China-based tech conglomerate that bought a minority stake in Playtonic back in 2021? Are they like tightening up the cash spigot here? Or is it just a general lack of revenue and poor financial planning, even after they moved to a new headquarters not 5 months ago? A few episodes ago, when Cameron and I discussed Yooka-Rayplay, I even said how I felt that the head of Playtonic seemed to be a decent businessman who had successfully kept their studio afloat for a decade. But, well, something's happened. Something's happened on that front. And Playtonic has been a beacon of our fandom over the past 10 years. Whenever we were feeling down about the lack of a new standalone Donkey Kong game being on store shelves, or whenever we were really feeling the weight of all of those brilliant rare IPs just piling up, nothing being done with them, we could always look towards Playtonic and say, well, hey, at least we know they're cooking up something tasty. At least we know they're making games that will appeal to our interest. And as of late, I'm not used to bad news like this.
Right.
I mean, well, no, let me reframe. I'm not used to bad news about the DKU/Rare/Playtonic fandom at this moment in time. This has been a pretty positive year for that.
Yeah, specifically for that.
For that. All of DK Vine's news has been fun as of late. I've enjoyed logging in and cranking out stories. I enjoy writing them when they're fun to discuss. Like Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is everywhere, and you can't escape his presence no matter how hard you try. That's a fun news story to write. But reporting that the people who are supposed to carry Playtonic and the old school Rare style of making video games well into the future have been let go. You know, like from what I'm hearing, the majority of the people who are still at Playtonic are the Rare vets, the people who are, you know, senior positions. That's gut-wrenching for me.
Right, yeah.
Especially when you consider that Playtonic itself was born out of what I call the original sin of the Rare Renaissance era. Those mass layoffs at Rare in 2014 that were, again, a gut punch when they happened back then. And we did a whole conversation about it, and it was one of the worst times I've had doing this podcast. But beyond what it means for the studio's future, at this immediate point in time, I would just like to extend our sympathy and whatever moral support we can provide as fans, as people who just yammer on about this, to all of the talented, hardworking creatives currently or now formerly at Playtonic who have been affected by this mess. And we'll keep following the story. I'll hopefully be having an update on dkvine.com really soon. And if we do hit the point where we know enough and I feel like we can be tactful about it, then maybe we will fully address it on a conversation to come. Because all I can really muster right now is the same thing I said on Blue Sky a couple of days ago. Shit sucks. Man.
Yeah.
Shit sucks.
It sure does.
Yeah, so I just wanted to address that at the outset. Hello to everyone in our live stream. Sorry to bring the mood down. We do live stream these episodes for our $5 and up patrons. And currently we have March Rose, the Snake Fighter 64, Fujiru, and Max Pepis.
Pepis.
It's like Pepsi Max, but a little different.
It's alternate universe Pepsi.
So Dustin, man,
hello.
It's like Playtonic carrying that torch for a decade, and then as soon as we get a new Donkey Kong game, it's like, oh no, Playtonic, oh no.
Yeah, it sucks that we celebrate one DKU branch, but then we're kind of left in an unsure position on another.
Yeah, I would just like everything to work at the same time.
Yeah, that would be nice. That'd be pretty good if everything could just work and be good and nice.
Maybe not in this realm, but it is one of the built-in durabilities of DK Vine itself, is that the conceit of the DKU means there's always something for us to discuss, even when times are tough in one corner or another. So, and this probably won't affect Yuka Replaylay. That's still probably coming out this year. It's just what happens after that.
It's going to put a real damper on it.
Yeah, that too. So this will be a topic we will circle back around to at a later date. But beyond our hopes and fears for Playtonic and the brilliant people who lost their jobs in the last few days, let's talk about our hopes and fears for Donkey Kong Bonanza, this singular video game coming out on the Nintendo Switch 2 console this July.
I'd love to do that, Hyle.
Yeah. Let's do this.
I'm more than ready.
All right, so I'm gonna start, Dustin, and I don't know how we want to do this. If we want to, like, each say a hope and a fear, and then trade off, or whatever, or if you just want me to say them all, and you can just chime in where applicable, we could do that.
You know what, Hyle? Whatever works best for you. We can kind of feel it out.
We'll just feel it out. We'll wing it.
Dip our little toesies in the water, in the disgusting, warm, uncomfortable bog water.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll get leeches all over our little toesies, and then we'll be like, whoa, look at all these extra toesies I have, but they're not toesies. They're wriggling little leeches sucking our blood.
That's my favorite quote from A Christmas Story, is when he goes, but they weren't toesies.
So, my first hope for Donkey Kong Bonanza, Dustin, and this is a pretty basic one. This is pretty just as simple can be. I hope the game has Diddy Kong in it somewhere. Now,
you know what, Hyle? That's also what I want most here. Once we saw Cranky, that was a big relief.
Yeah.
But Diddy is still, my main guy. He's the one I really want to see in there. And at this point, I want to say it's very likely, but you never know with these. Like, Mario Odyssey did not originally have Luigi in at launch. They added him in later as like a new little mini game. But he wasn't a guarantee with that game from the get-go.
Luigi's always had a weird relationship with the 3D Mario games. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't always show up. And I wouldn't want that for Diddy. I wouldn't want to be like, oh, who knows if Diddy will show up. He's just not really that kind of character. He always shows up. Mario can have an adventure without Luigi, and Donkey Kong could have an adventure without Diddy, but it feels a little more wrong than having Mario without Luigi.
Yeah, I think it feels that way because Donkey and Diddy are just such a natural pairing. And there's a few reasons why this is a hope and not a fear. Like the fear of I fear that Diddy Kong is not in the game, because at this point we're so far removed from the drama surrounding Donkey Kong Jungle Beat's release 20 years ago, and there is no question about it right now that Diddy Kong's future in this franchise is secure.
Yeah.
Like, there are a couple things behind this, but look, you don't need to really search far for the logic behind it, because we've just seen a new Donkey Kong series render this past week at the Las Vegas Licensing Expo. Did you hear about this, Dustin? Did you hear about this?
Oh, I heard about this all right, Hyle.
Yeah. So, sorry, I was slipping into my Jay Leno routine there.
What else is new?
Gotta stop. He hasn't been on TV in like close to a decade, but
Hyle, here's something on Jay Leno. I don't know if anyone's ever said this before, but you seen the chin on that guy?
Yeah, it's pretty monstrous, but I don't like the body shame. I'm in awe at the chin. Some people have been body shaming Diddy since he got that millimeter of flesh between his eyes.
That's true.
And I'm just like, you know what? Lay off. He's beautiful.
I thought you were going to say they were body shaming him for being a little chunkier. And I was just saying the other day that I like that. I feel like Diddy's... Like, you look at Diddy's model in Returns and Tropical Freeze, and he looks great, but he does look scrawnier than he used to. I feel like this new Diddy we're getting has a little bit more of that, a little bit of chubbiness from the original Rare renders.
You're a little bit of a Diddy Kong chunk chaser.
What can I say, Hyle? You know me.
Yeah, so this new render at the Licensing Expo, it is, set up for Nintendo to basically hawk their franchises at prospective licensees. Hey, how would you like to make this like wonderful, I don't know, Super Mario dog chew toy, or this just like fantastic Metroid maternity shirt?
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Why don't you do it?
Proud Metroid mommy.
Look at all of our IPs. Have your pick. Well, among their IPs, betwixt the Super Mario banner and the giant Legend of Zelda sort of a like statue diorama thing going on, they had in the middle Donkey Kong. And this is a new Donkey Kong franchise image to represent like the Donkey Kong franchise as a whole. It's not from Bonanza. It's not from any past Retro Studios Donkey Kong Country game. Although, if you look closely, the jungle background, it has been repurposed from past Donkey Kong merchandise. They just really scaled up the brightness of the colors, the contrast, the saturation. So it looks new, but I studied the trees closely, Dustin. The trees have been used before.
Hyle studied the trees, everybody. Don't worry.
I did my diligence, and I didn't just fly off the handle and said, new jungle render. Yay. No, it's been reused. But these are new renders of Donkey and Diddy swinging on vines in the jungle. They're both
look at them.
They're new designs. We've never seen this render of either of them before, and it looks just great. It looks terrific. I love the way this looks. It really does help sell what the Donkey Kong brand iconography is. And look, Diddy's right there with Donkey Kong. This is the future of Donkey Kong. This is the future of the Donkey Kong brand being advertised to licensees in Las Vegas. Diddy is at the forefront. Diddy is not going anywhere, even if he's not in Bonanza.
Right. I mean, I hope he is. It would be very weird if he wasn't, especially for the first Donkey Kong game in so long, but it doesn't mean they're... if he happens to not be in Bonanza, he is still sticking around regardless.
Yeah, I think what we have as a fan base, we have to get past are those lingering psychic scars from the buyout era. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard to move on, especially when the Returns era and going into the Renaissance, it maybe didn't provide us all of the fan service that longtime fans of the series would have hoped for what was supposed to be a grand return of Donkey Kong Country. And so that, I don't know, that the misconceptions, but also very real feelings of the buyout era, they never fully went away because maybe somebody working or overseeing Retro said, you can't use those characters. I don't like them. And
get them out of here.
And, or maybe some artists at Retro weren't feeling it and they're just like, let's just do our own thing. And as Donkey Kong fans, I'm going to bring Jeff up here. Jeff's going to sit back and say, where the hell is in Guard the Swordfish? You have all these underwater levels in a Donkey Kong Country game and you don't use in Guard the Swordfish. You've made a bad Donkey Kong game. I don't agree with that assessment, but that is Jeff's assessment. Jeff's a complicated fella because he's replaying Returns in Tropical Freeze right now and seemingly enjoying them, but he still has his criticisms, which I understand. But
yeah, fair. I've been playing Returns too. I finally got around to starting Returns HD.
I'm currently chopping away at mirror mode, at all the various mirror mode levels, and it's quite enjoyable. Returns in Tropical Freeze, I love them quite a bit, but I do think it's fair to say that they didn't do everything the fandom was hoping for. And on the subject of Diddy, I'll say this. Once we saw Cranky was in that re-edited trailer that was posted on Nintendo Today, that immediately alleviated a lot of the concerns I was feeling day one. I know it was the same in the Idaho crew. You were all kind of, or at least you and Cameron were kind of fence sitters until you saw Cranky. And then it was like, okay.
Yeah.
This is clearly not going to be just a shutout of old familiar faces. And then once we saw Cranky's dialogue and how not only faithful it was to the character, but also just how much that dialogue immediately soothed us as fans, because he mentioned all of this stuff and like up to and including being the original Donkey Kong. And it's just like, oh wow, like this is way more than we ever got in the last 14 years or so.
Yeah, they just really get him. It feels like the first time, like his dialogue in Returns, pretty good. It's not like he's not cranky in it, but it feels like Bonanza's dialogue, he's back to being a full-blown asshole. Like not just irritable. He's like, fuck you, you idiot son of mine. Not that he says that, but he's just really letting DK have it.
A prolapsed asshole.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it.
Is it? Well,
yeah, because the asshole is coming back out of him.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah, okay, I guess I do have a way with words then. But
yeah,
seeing Cranky like calm me down about Diddy, and also I was never really worried about Diddy, even day one pre-Cranky. Just knowing how heavy Diddy is factored into things like Super Nintendo World, the Donkey Kong Country theme park, that, by the way, just opened at Epic Universe, as Epic Universe just opened at Universal Orlando Resort. And when you walk into Super Nintendo World at Epic Universe, you're greeted by this warp pipe, this giant warp pipe. And at the very top of the warp pipe is Mario, because Mario is God in Nintendodom.
Of course, we all know.
And underneath that, it says, "Here we go." But on the sides of the pipe are 8 characters in a golden relief. And those 8 characters are Luigi, Toad, Yoshi, Peach, Bowser Jr., Bowser, Diddy Kong, and Donkey Kong. Diddy is on there at the entrance.
That is a relief.
Yeah, it is a relief. Yeah, so Diddy's there. He's one of the characters represented. If you would have told me 20 years ago that Diddy would have been one of the most heavily promoted and marketed characters at a Nintendo theme park, I wouldn't have believed you. I would not have believed you. Like, all the buyout era drama would have just kept me from being that optimistic about Diddy's future.
I'd take a long drag on my cigarette and say, get the hell out of my face.
Yeah, Dustin, I've been meaning to talk to you about your smoking habit. I'm concerned about you.
I smoke 7 packs a day. That's how I got this voice. I originally sounded like a chipmunk.
You have for the past 20 years, too, which is the real problem I have with it.
Yeah, well, if you don't have Diddy in your theme park, I'm going to start smoking 20 packs a day. But now that he's here, I think it's finally time to quit.
You better watch what you say, or the nicotine lobby, the tobacco lobby, they're going to partner with Nintendo to withhold Diddy. So they
Get him out of there.
They can make all that sweet Dustin Jackson moolah.
They'll say, don't worry. I know Diddy's not in the theme park anymore, but we still got your back.
And I'm mostly convinced that the next Donkey Kong game following Bonanza will be a 2D platformer, possibly as part of the Donkey Kong Country lineage, like Donkey Kong Country 6, not called that, but with multiple playable characters. Now, this isn't based on any inside information. This isn't me wearing my Donkey Kong journalism hat. This is me wearing my frantic Donkey Kong fanboy speculation hat. It's a hunch, but I think it's a well-reasoned hunch that is what they will do next.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of makes sense with their bigger IPs they have, like Mario, Zelda, all these things get like secondary games besides like the quote-unquote big one. So it would make sense to do more DK games, even if on a smaller scale than Bonanza is, to keep that IP fresh.
Yeah. And look, Diddy was prominent 20 years ago. I don't want to revise history too much. Like, knee deep in the buyout era, Diddy was still showing up everywhere. But the difference between now and then is now there is a far more unified vision and a far more unified brand identity for Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Mm-hmm. That's like been one of my favorite things to see with Bonanza is just bringing all of the Donkey Kong eras together.
Yeah, exactly. Like bringing it all together and building something new on top of that. That's what I like to see. And we'll be getting into that in just a little bit. The buyout era was a tug of war for Donkey Kong's soul, and it felt like all the Donkey Kong releases were fighting each other. Yeah, it felt like there was just this weird cold war between them. And I know I've addressed this so many times on the podcast, but it's worth repeating once again. You had the Rare developed Game Boy Advance remakes of the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, and then eventually the DS remake of Diddy Kong Racing. You had the Namco developed Donkey Konga games. You had Donkey Kong Jungle Beat by Nintendo EAD. You had Peon's games. You had Mario vs. Donkey Kong. So you had like every degree of Donkey Kong, from pre-Rare to let's build on what Rare did to let's completely ignore what Rare did. All at the same time in different games. Whereas with Bonanza, you've got all of that, it feels like just baked into one game in harmony with each other. And that's why I'm not worried about characters. That's why I'm not worried about who we haven't seen, what hasn't been brought up yet in the very limited amount of the game we've seen thus far. In just the little limited amount we've seen thus far, we've seen so much fan service. We've seen so much that roots itself in Donkey Kong's illustrious past.
Yeah, I don't think you can do a game where you have a reference to the Northern Hemisphere and not have Diddy Kong as well.
Right. And also, to the earlier point, 3D Mario does focus mostly on the character of Mario. And then they'll throw in something new that spices up Mario a little bit, like Flood or Cappy. You know, Here's this thing that's going to make this Mario adventure totally different from the other Mario adventures. And so far, that's Odd Rock with Bonanza.
Right.
2D Mario, or even the smaller scale 3D Land / World, they seem to be more about teaming up the broader Mario cast. Here's Mario and his wacky friends, the monarchy, the aristocracy, and his brother. Yeah, so I do think the next Donkey Kong Country game, even if it's not called Donkey Kong Country, because again, my point that I made several years ago in the Kongversation, and I think it's bearing fruit, the brand itself is Donkey Kong Country now. We don't even need it to be called Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country is the winning formula for Donkey Kong going forward. But I do think the next 2D game will see Diddy and Dixie. And like, I'm not saying it's not necessarily going to just replicate Tropical Freeze, but I think we can even look at Super Mario Wonder and see how they did it. And just imagine how they would then do it for Donkey Kong.
Yeah, that has more Mario characters to play as than ever, I think, than any other 2D Mario.
Yeah, so I am not concerned about Diddy Kong, but that being said, I do hope Diddy at least shows up somewhere.
Right. I don't even need him to be like a huge part of the game. Like, I don't need him to be with Donkey Kong at all times, but I do want him in there at least. I want to be able to talk to him. Just let him have a presence in the first Donkey Kong game in a long time.
And that's really the thing. Yeah, I would be fine if future Donkey Kong games, you know, they don't have this character, they don't have that character, but I think because this is the beginning of a new era and it has been such a long wait, that it would just be nice to see my guy in there, you know?
Yeah.
I want to see that millimeter of flesh between his eyes, and I want to touch it.
Yeah, I think that's another part of it is, so we talked about Diddy's new design, and overall, I do like it. You know, some small things I'll have to get used to, but I feel like it would really help if I could see him animated. Like, if he was in Bonanza, I'd be able to see this new design put to work, seeing, like, what you can get out of it. Because I think they're on the right track with it. I just want to see him moving around, making expressions. That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. In a live stream, the Snake Fighter 64, who has been on record as not liking the new Donkey Kong design, says, I get frustrated whenever I see all of these little details about how DK has a similar animation here to his old death animation because they feel so hollow to me. They already changed the biggest things they could change. Little details don't make up for it. You know, I don't necessarily agree, and I think part of it is if this was just like stills I was seeing of Donkey Kong's design, I think I would have greater issue with it. But seeing it in motion, I do feel like my guy is in there. Like the Donkey Kong.
It helps to get the life out of the new designs.
Yeah. And so that's why I want to see Diddy in it, because I don't have any qualms about Diddy's new design. Even the millimeter of flesh is a fun talking point in my book. But I would like to see how his new design works in motion. And I think that goes a long way towards selling me on something, is just seeing how he's just going to feel like a real character and not just a series of static images on my screen.
Yeah, that can only get you so far with these characters.
Yeah. So, hope Diddy is in it, Dustin. I hope Diddy is in it.
Me too. That is probably like my number one most wanted thing right now.
It's up there for me. I think it's that and something else. I'll let you know when I talk about something else. But let's sweet and sour. We're gonna keep it like the box of Sour Patch Kids that you're chomping on when you're watching Thunderbolts or Sinners or whatever you're seeing in the theater this weekend. You're slurping on those sweet kids, but then they're also sour, and it's like, whoa, what are they rolling in?
What is this? What's going on here? I'm going out of my fucking mind.
So let's talk about I don't know if this is my biggest fear anymore. Once upon a time, this was my biggest fear.
Yeah.
What if the game ... has too much Mario stuff in it compared to Donkey Kong characters and Donkey Kong iconography? Now, let me explain what I mean, and let me explain why this is not really a big fear anymore. Okay?
You better explain yourself, Hyle.
I
know.
Better
have a good explanation for this.
The thing is, I tried to explain myself, and people still just put words in my mouth, or they just stopped listening. For more on that, see some of the YouTube comments on my recent video, The Donkey Kong Universe, Diddy Kong Racing's Enduring Legacy, where I painstakingly point out every possible talking point people might have, and yet people just say, well, what about this? What about that? I'm like, well, I addressed that. I have a whole section of the video where I talk about the Muppets, or I talk about the spheres of canonicity. Anyway.
I love those spheres.
The spheres of canonicity. So, given that this is the first Donkey Kong project out of Nintendo EPD, the return of it being under Miyamoto's full purview, and just the pedigree behind this game, with all the connection to 3D Mario games of yore, it's probably been my biggest concern since we first reported that it was EPD working on Donkey Kong. I was excited because I knew that meant good things for Donkey Kong's future. And I was excited from what I was hearing and what I was reporting on, that the people behind this were Donkey Kong fans. That it wasn't just, oh, I guess we got stuck with the Donkey Kong potato. Oh, we have to make the Donkey Kong. Oh,
we have to make another damn Donkey Kong Country game.
Fucking sucks.
Can't they just kill us instead?
It's like Heaven's Gate. The mid-90s cult that ate the poison yogurt.
Right.
Yeah, and they're like, oh no, was this a UFO cult in Tokyo? Oh no, they were just trying to make a Donkey Kong game.
We get it now.
For Donkey Kong series fans, I would say this has been one of the lingering concerns about the Donkey Kong series, even before the EPD news. Like, going back to when the modern Donkey Kong first showed up in Mario Kart 64. Because for those of us of a certain age, Dustin, for those of us of a certain age, we became Donkey Kong fans vis-a-vis Donkey Kong Country. And the level of separation between the Donkey Kong series brand identity and Super Mario at the launch of Donkey Kong Country was never wider. It was never more pronounced than it was when Donkey Kong Country came out. And then its immediate follow-ups came out. Donkey Kong Land, Donkey Kong Country 2, Donkey Kong Land 2, Donkey Kong Country 3. Like, you would get some nods to Mario or the arcade era in there, but it really just felt like its own thing. And
yeah,
So when they started putting Donkey Kong in the cameo games, the Mario sports games, racing games, party games, it was like, ugh, okay, don't get carried away now. And of course, the irony of ironies is that had Rare stayed with Nintendo, like Rare toyed with it at one point. They wanted to make half the Diddy Kong pilot cast Mario characters at one point.
That's so crazy to think of now.
Yeah. They would have had to deal with Donkey and Donkey Kong Jr. being paired up in all these games, which did happen in Mario Tennis, but would have become the norm with Double Dash. And it wasn't until the buyout that Nintendo felt comfortable using Diddy Kong, and so Rare's continuity was kind of respected a little bit more, and really it is probably preserved to this day because the buyout happened. But ironically, yes. But yeah, it's always been a fear that, and we've done episodes of the Kongversation about this in the past. What happens if they just merge Donkey Kong in with Super Mario? The last time this was a real concern was when we saw that first trailer for Super Mario Odyssey, New Donk City, and we were like, uh-oh. But then it quickly became apparent that something was up. Something better than that was up. For one, they removed Donkey Kong from the Super Mario license. Talking about merchandise, talking about licensees. They made Donkey Kong its own merchandise brand once again. And it hadn't been for a long time. It had been just part of the Mario package. So I was like, okay, they wouldn't do that if they didn't care about building up Donkey Kong. And who cares about building up Donkey Kong as its own viable brand, not relying on Mario as a crutch? Why? It's Miyamoto. That's who cares. Miyamoto seems very keen on keeping them separate and only having them cross over in designated spaces at certain points in time where it's acceptable, like Mario Kart. Mario Kart, yeah, it's fine. It's Mario Kart. That's what they do in Mario Kart. Donkey Kong shows up.
That's what happens.
You might be saying, well, that's full of shit, Hyle. Fuck you. I'm like, whoa.
I was just about to say that. I was this close to saying that.
Calm down, hypothetical listener who just flies off in a rage. Calm down. Remember that, according to Miyamoto, it took some swaying for him to agree to let Donkey Kong appear in the Super Mario Brothers movie. He wasn't going to let it happen. He was like, no. But then they were like, what about Mario Kart? What about Mario Party? Why can't we do this? And he was like, oh, you got me, sons of bitches.
You called me out.
And yes, in Donkey Kong Bananza so far, we have seen New Donk City being referenced, maybe even appearing in the background. And I'm sure there will be some other tie-ins as it relates to that world in Odyssey, and even the broader arcade era of Donkey Kong. But I really do think, and hope, even though this is under the fear category, that that will primarily be it. It will be where it makes sense to cross-reference. And you're not going to see Mario himself show up and go, woo-hoo-wee-hee, woo-hoo.
He does say that. His famous catchphrase, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll have to change it up now that Charles Martinet is no longer there.
Right.
It's like, can I do some new words? Like, blah, blah?
Can Mario say, blah, 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 blah?
And not just when he's drowning, on dry land, too.
Yeah, I want him to stick out his tongue and go, blah, 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 blah.
The truth is, though, Dustin, and this is why I feel like this is no longer a big concern of mine. Like a couple weeks ago, I speculated, everybody's thinking, what if Rool is behind it all, but what if Bowser is behind it all? How much would that suck? And yeah, that would suck. That would suck, but we've already seen a greater ratio in favor of actual Donkey Kong series references in Donkey Kong Bananza over Mario series references than we have in the entirety of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Isn't that just the most fucked thing you've ever heard in your life?
Again, I love Tropical Freeze. This is not me
For sure.
piling on Tropical Freeze. Please do not take away from this episode that I have a vendetta against Tropical Freeze, one of the greatest Donkey Kong games ever made. But one of the things that does rankle me about Tropical Freeze, it sticks in my craw, it gets my goat, grabs my grapes. This is just Fiddlesworth now. Is that Tropical Freeze seems to like referencing the Mario series more than it likes referencing Donkey Kong games.
Agreed. And like there'll be arcade Donkey Kong references in there. But boy, you could count the references to like Donkey Kong Country games on one hand.
Yeah, they stuck the gramophone, the phonograph for Cranky in the one level. And it's like, oh, great. Yeah. You played the first 15 seconds of Donkey Kong Country. Pat yourselves on the back.
Yeah, I guess you could count it on one finger, really.
And look, I liked all of Retro's callbacks to Donkey Kong Country Returns in Tropical Freeze. That was great, but like just seeing the little chunks of Bonanza that we have seen, there's just so much in there already. Like, the Northern Hemisphere is a huge thing. Talking about what alleviated us, having the Northern Hemisphere referenced in this very mysterious, tantalizing way is like, holy shit, what? And
yeah, I mean, we already talked about it to death, but it's still wild to me seeing that. It's like, DKC3 gets referenced in anything ever? Wow.
And the only thing we've seen really directly referencing Mario is the Donkey Kong tie-in in Odyssey, New Donk City. And New Donk City has all these tie-ins with the arcade era, certain characters, and I think they're going to keep a respectful, healthy distance. They're not going to have Mario come in at the 11th hour and take away Donkey Kong's glory in his big new game that heralds the beginning of a new developmental era of Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I think about the way Nintendo handles stuff like that, and I think things like Donkey Kong and Wario are so far away from Mario that they try not to put in they try not to put in any references to Mario stuff if they can help it. But then you have ones like Luigi's Mansion, which are a little closer. More immediate characters like Luigi and Yoshi, you see more direct Mario references in.
Yeah.
And even then, in the Yoshi games, Bowser's the main villain like all the time, and that sucks. Yoshi just can't branch out from Mario. It would be awful if Donkey Kong was like, oh, but now Bowser's gonna be your villain too. Sorry. And I don't see that happening. That seems like such an out of left field thing that I can't see them doing it.
Yeah, they have been very diligent about rebuilding the Donkey Kong brand over the last several years, building up to this moment. And with EPD comes greater creative freedom. I would say they are the division making Nintendo games that has the greatest amount of I guess confidence that nobody's going to breathe down their necks and say, you can't do that. You can't use that character. Right. You can't celebrate Donkey Kong in this way. We talk a lot about how much Retro could or could not do under Tanabe's thumb. And you know, I don't want to diminish Retro's contributions to the Donkey Kong legacy, but this does seem to be a team that really loves the Donkey Kong Country series. Miyamoto seems to champion a lot of these characters, and there's this misconception that Miyamoto hates Donkey Kong Country, hates Rare's Donkey Kong. And I think Miyamoto has his preferences. He's human. You know, he's got his foibles just like the rest of us. But I don't think Miyamoto's ever showed any hostility towards the characters. Maybe he wanted to redesign Donkey Kong to better match his preferences, but it's still the same Donkey Kong from Rare. It's still the guy who hangs out with Diddy who is in all the marketing. And there was all this talk after the Super Mario Brothers movie. Oh, well, obviously they're going to do a Mario and Donkey Kong game where they team up. And they are just going to kind of phase out Donkey Kong being its own independent thing. And I was like, wow, this is bullshit. Like, you're just... Mm-hmm. I talk a lot about object permanence and how so many fans seem to only understand the most recent thing. And then that becomes the unyielding, unchanging reality for them. And so they saw the
trendsetter.
Yeah, they saw the Super Mario Brothers movie and they couldn't see past it at that point. And
yeah, Mario's going to be voiced by Chris Pratt from now on.
But I was like, that's not what they're going to do with Donkey Kong. They wouldn't be making all these moves to build up the Donkey Kong IP if they were then immediately going to nerf it and have Donkey Kong just be, again, a leech wiggling on Mario's toesy.
Yeah, I think about the theme park, like, if they wanted, they could have just put Donkey Kong in there with all the Mario stuff. They could have just said, like, oh, yeah, Donkey Kong is no separate from Mario in the same way Luigi or Wario are. So we'll just have him as part of this park. No, they did a whole separate park for Donkey Kong.
Yep. Super Mario Land and Donkey Kong Country.
Mm-hmm.
So... I think, and look, I even like touch upon this in my new video. Why are you watching my new video? Go watch my new video. If you've already watched it, thank you. Keep listening to this episode. But in the video, you know, I discuss Mario's relation to Donkey Kong. And I'm like, yes, they will always be linked. They will always be connected. But they're more sister series than anything. And you're not really going to see them bleed over all that much.
Right, yeah.
And I do think that that is the philosophy, even in this new era of Donkey Kong, even if it's under the same roof as the people who make the mainline Mario games. I think they are going to keep them separate, and they're only going to cross over where it makes sense. And, you know, the points where the two series will touch will be that shared heritage, the arcade games.
Right, yeah. I also feel like if they were just going to dilute the Donkey Kong brand, just make it part of Mario, we wouldn't have seen this these new renders at that Vegas Expo.
Yeah.
Specifically having Donkey Kong as its own branded thing.
They wouldn't have made that move in 2017, 2018. Right around the time EPD took over the Donkey Kong brand. They wouldn't have done that if they were just like, well, I guess we could just... Like, Donkey Kong would have been a character in Super Mario Wonder. Do you ever think about how he wasn't?
Yeah, you ever think about that?
Shitheads. No, I'm joking. I
will say, Hyle.
Yeah.
I would not be opposed to a game where they say, okay, for this game, it's... Mario teams up with Donkey Kong, and you get characters from both. They team up to stop some sort of bad thing going on. That I would be down with. I just didn't want to have that for Donkey Kong's big comeback game.
No, I mean, that's what I've been saying. I would kind of like the Mario versus Donkey Kong series to be, is an actual damn crossover, and not just having Donkey Kong as the villain in a Mario game.
Yeah, seriously. I would love a game where Mario and Donkey Kong are like, look, I don't like you, you don't like me, but we gotta team up and be friends to stop this evil monster rabbit or whatever.
Well, that's another good point, though. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Look at how they handled Donkey Kong in that. Look at how they handled the Donkey Kong DLC in that. It was this own, like, separate thing.
Yeah.
You had the references and allusions to Donkey Kong with Rabbit Kong. But then, like, all the Donkey Kong stuff was just its own part of the game. Its own separated, like, second story of the game. And,
Yeah.
you know, there were no characters other than Rabbid Peach and Rabbid Kong making that jump over. So they've
Again,
been
if
very
they wanted,
careful.
if they wanted to just have Donkey Kong be a part of Mario, they could have just had him just in the normal game.
Yep. I agree. In the live stream, Freezer asked, is this the first time Hyle has gotten a Nintendo system so close to launch since the GameCube? And March Rose, these people know my life so well. It's weird. March Rose says, I know he waited for the Wii and Switch. I can't remember the Wii U. I got a Wii U right before Tropical Freeze came out. So not at launch. Like, this is the first time I'm getting a system at launch since the Xbox 360.
Wow.
Yeah. I never get a system at launch. Had to do it this time, though. Had to do it, Dustin.
You know what? I used to never get systems at launch, but I have been the last, like, I got the Wii U at launch and I got the Switch at launch, and Switch 2 is going to be the next one. I used to never do that ever. Also,
hello to Me Muppet in the live stream, who has greeted us with the pants dance emoji.
That's my favorite thing Me Muppet does.
Yeah, it's classic Me Muppet. All right. Let's talk about A New Hope. Not Star Wars. No.
I was gonna say.
Let's talk about hope I have beyond just returning characters. I hope the game's new characters are both plentiful, but also memorable. I hope they are brimming with personality, and I hope they feel at home with the existing extended Donkey Kong cast.
I agree with that, Hyle. Like, I want to have a bunch of returning Donkey Kong characters, but I also want new characters to love.
And that's the thing. So, by the way, just based on some of the NPC dialogue we have seen so far, with like the monkey miners and the grouchy little monkeys in the lagoon layer, and the sheer amount of them, I don't think we have any reason to doubt that, one, there will be plenty of characters in this. Two, that they're not going to be written well. I think they will be written pretty well, pretty spot on. They all seem to be amusing little jokesters. They all have a lot of personality.
Yeah.
And
I like those little fisher monkey guys, the blue ones.
Yeah.
Blue Kongs. I never thought I'd see that.
Right. I like the miners too, in Ingot Isle, and they're just like, oh, Donkey Kong, don't be snacking on my banana, if you know what I mean.
He did say that.
So, contrary to the impression that some people might have of me or of Dustin or of the DK Vine staff or frequent Kongversation co-host or Donkey Kong fans, since the buyout era, we do actually like new characters and new things. We're not just stuck in this death cycle of lamenting the loss of the mid-1990s characters. It's always been more of this degree of saltiness over them not doing enough with the characters and not utilizing the cast to its full potential. But it's never been, we never want anything new in any of these games ever.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was one of my problems with Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. There were some new characters in there, but, like, you get a lot of repeat characters, more than I personally would like.
Yeah, I mean, I have my issues with Nuts and Bolts. I also really like Nuts and Bolts, but...
Oh, yeah, for sure. I like it.
My biggest issue with Nuts and Bolts is that each world has the same Banjo-Kazooie characters playing different roles, because One,
Yeah, I want new characters.
I want new characters. That's one. Number two, it also makes everything that's happening in the game feel like it has no weight because Hamba Wamba or Boggy, they're just play acting. So what the hell does this matter? This is just a pantomime. This is just a farce. This is just nonsense.
This absolute nonsense.
This is like when you play a Mario Party game and it's like, it turns out we were just doing a play. And it's like, well, I just wasted 70 hours of my life for that. Get into that in Spotlight Mario Party 2.
You've betrayed me.
So anyway, yeah, that's a nuts and bolts discussion. That's for another episode. But I like when you have that healthy mix of old and new because it elevates the new and it makes you love the new just as much as you love the old.
Yeah.
Even in the buyout era, even in the thick of the most intense fandom debates that Donkey Kong and Rare fans have probably ever had, there were post-Rare characters in the Donkey Kong series that the fandom immediately galvanized around and treated as part of the family, same as anyone else.
For sure.
Xananab? Anyone?
Xananab's the big one I think of.
Xananab from Jungle Climber, Calypso from Barrel Blast / Jet Race. And Barrel Blast, my God, that's a very divisive game. I think most people will acknowledge that game is not very good.
Yeah, like even as a hardcore Donkey Kong fan, I have to admit I do not love playing that game.
You don't, but there's something about those original Kremling characters in the game that you're like, all right, yeah. Hi, Calypso, nice to meet you. Where have you been? I'm just meeting you now, but I feel like you've been here for years.
Yeah, well, especially since getting individual Kremling characters is so rare. No pun intended.
Especially since that game, yeah. But those characters felt like they were just woven into this like ever-expanding tapestry that was started by Rare. And then, Payon picks up the needles and they continue. Whereas in other games with other experiences, it felt like you were handed this completely new tapestry, a quilt or something. And it feels all scratchy and it doesn't keep you warm. And you're like, I miss my old blanket.
I'm not familiar with this.
Like, again, I have really come around on Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is actually a bit of brilliance, and it's very underrated. Especially seek out the original GameCube version with the bongos. I know it sounds weird, but a 2D platformer with bongos, it works beautifully. But with Jungle Beat, it was very hard to get excited about the likes of Hoofer, Orko, Flurl, or the Hellabirds because they just felt like naked replacements for Rambi, Engard, Quawks, and Squawks.
They just feel so redundant. It's not even that they're bad, but it's like, well, I already have Rambi.
Yeah, like, why are you inventing these completely new characters? We talked about this when we did our ukulele episode. Like, so many of the ukulele characters were born out of the necessity of we can't use the Banjo-Kazooie characters. So who's going to be the Bottles? Who's going to be the Cheeto? And I'm like, Nintendo, what are you doing? You own these characters. You own Rambi. You could just use Rambi. What are you doing? Like, and I like Hoofer. I like those animal buddies. They were called jungle buddies in the game, but they're animal buddies.
Yeah, they're not bad on their own.
They're not bad on their own, but when you have nothing to root the game in the past, and I understand why they did it, I just don't necessarily agree with the rationale. It wasn't malicious, but it definitely hurt the fans' expectations and enthusiasm around the game. And I was like, you're not getting anything returning in this. It's all new experiences. And Donkey Kong's going to act like a belligerent little twit for a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's That's why even today I don't really dig Jungle Beat. Like, we know there was no malicious intent involved now, but it's still not necessarily what I want out of a Donkey Kong game either.
Yeah, and I think it really hurts Jungle Beat's legacy because it keeps it at arm's length from the rest of the series, which is why I want them to start implementing and utilizing some of the stuff from Jungle Beat, like bring in Karate Kong. Why don't you? I don't know, but
bring in Karate Kong. Why don't you?
We also saw this problem with new characters, even in an era that brought back old characters. I mean, look at Professor Chops. And I know Professor Chops has his fans. Hello, Traveler of the Stars. I know that Professor Chops is growing on the fandom. He's growing on me. But Professor Chops would have been accepted more readily if there were, I don't know, a few more animal buddies in the game. Maybe a couple Kongs coming back. More returning anything in Donkey Kong Country Returns. And lest we forget, Professor Chops wasn't called that in his debut game. He was simply labeled Tutorial Pig, which immediately put a wet blanket over him. A pig in a blanket. Imagine that.
Could you imagine such a world?
I'm talking about blankets a lot on this episode, and how they're scratchy, and they don't keep you warm, and then they're sopping wet, and there's Tutorial Pig underneath, but it's really hard to care about a brand new Donkey Kong character when it feels like there's barely a character there at all. You just call it Tutorial Pig? Why am I supposed to care about this?
Right.
Make me care about your new character. If he's so important to be in there, why aren't you giving him a damn name? And this wasn't just a Retro Studios problem. Look at the NPCs in Donkey Kong 64. Look at the weirdos that Rare's DK64 team populated that game with, especially compared to the colorful, vibrant cast members with names, mind you, in the Banjo-Kazooie series or Conker's Bad Fur Day even. Like
Conker's Bad Fur Day names all of those guys. Like the Dung Beetles have names.
Yeah,
like things that you shouldn't care about who they are.
Right, and they're just names like Baza and stuff like that. Like
there's Bert the Iron Box.
Nothing groundbreaking. None of these characters are ever going to win any awards, but I think that little minimal effort to show that there's something in this character, in this big box, or this mouse who eats cheese until he explodes. Like, you like, that's Marvin. That's Marvin the Mouse. I remember that. Why? Because they gave him a name.
Hyle, I'm wearing my Marvin the Mouse pajamas while we're recording this.
That's right. You're gonna have to change those pajamas because you put that wet blanket over yourself.
Yeah, they smell really bad too.
But yeah, just don't put empty husk in the shape of cartoon characters in your game and expect me to care. Make them matter. And
if you don't care, I don't care.
Exactly. Make them matter, and they will go a long way towards being celebrated by the people who play these games. And maybe it's a cultural difference between Donkey Kong fans and fans of other Nintendo series, but I somehow doubt that. I don't think that we're as different from the Mario fandom as we pretend that we are.
Yeah.
I know the Mario fandom cares about characters. I know that. Yeah.
I mean, I think about how, and speaking of the Mario fandom caring about characters, this is getting a little off track from Donkey Kong, but something that a lot of people complain about is how the NPCs in the Paper Mario games are so downgraded from what they used to be. Because in the first couple Paper Marios, sure, you'd have like a bunch of generic filler toads here and there, but you'd also have like unique toads with different designs and hairstyles and names and personalities. Yeah. You would have toads that were like actual characters, and that is so cool. That's a big reason why I love those early Paper Mario games so much. and really don't care that much about a lot of the more recent ones.
Yeah, I think there's probably more crossover with the Mario RPG fandom, that particular niche of Mario fandom, and the DKU fandom, than there might be with the more mainstream Mario fandom, who's probably all about those toads. Those just generic toads. Yeah. Here's Yellow Toad, everyone. Yellow Toad.
That makes sense, because if you're playing even Mario Wonder, which is a great game, but that's not a game that focuses on that stuff. You can just have generic toads and it's fine just because of the kind of game it is. But for games like the Paper Mario series, those have a lot of characters to talk to. You want your world to feel alive. You want to have actual characters you want to talk to in a game like that.
Yeah. And I do like that it looks like going forward, Nintendo's really going to be leaning into the Kong civilization. And so you can have even unnamed NPCs, like all those minor monkeys. You can have them filling out the world, but they can all have their own personalities and looks. And it just feels a little bit more unique than changing the color on the top of a toad and giving them different underwear or whatever. I guess they give them different shirts. It's not like they're wearing yellow diapers. Is it? Do they wear yellow diapers?
I don't think so. I think that means something different.
Okay. All right. Well. Anyway, I do hope that we have a lot of memorable new characters. And look, not getting into Odd Rock too much here, but I think Odd Rock, just based on what we've seen, is growing on me.
Yeah, I like that guy.
Or whatever.
I like his little faces. I like the little faces and noises he makes.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about a fear, Dustin. And this is probably my biggest fear for Donkey Kong Bananza. And it's not even so much necessarily for me. It's I'm afraid for others. This is me being altruistic. This is me thinking beyond my own bubble.
You're such a good soul, Hyle.
Thank you. It's called empathy, and it does matter.
Yeah, look into it sometime, everyone else.
But I would be lying if I said I also didn't want this in the game for my own selfish desires.
Right.
My biggest fear, what if the game doesn't have K. Rool or any Kremlin acknowledgement in there at all? Now, let me explain what I mean by this. I'm not saying it's either K. Rool is the final boss or I'm going to riot. It's not that. But I do think that K. Rool's fans probably deserve this win. And I know that not everything in Bonanza is going to be the iconic template of a Donkey Kong game down to the Kong letter, because it's a new 3D adventure taking Donkey Kong to some pretty strange places he's never been before. I mean, going into the Hollow Earth and the realms therein. So that's going to open up some wild possibilities, and as is customary for these 3D adventures by EPD, it's not really going to just be the traditional formula. This isn't just going to be Donkey Kong 64 done different. This is going to be something completely new and exciting. And that's well and good. I understand that. I accept that. I'm looking forward to that. But as the first Donkey Kong game of this new developmental era, and I think that's also important, this is not just another aberration in Donkey Kong's development history, and then, well, he's going to wind up at another studio after this, probably. He's going to couch surf for years and years to come. This is Donkey Kong's home, as we're led to believe. And I assume that the next Donkey Kong game, which I think will be a 2D game, will be coming from some division of EPD. But this is also the first new Donkey Kong game following K. Rool becoming a certified Nintendo All-Star in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which, yes, was 7 years ago this year, but wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things. And I do think K. Rool needs to be acknowledged. I think he needs to be part of Donkey Kong Bananza, even if he isn't the big boss, even if he isn't behind Voidco or whatever. I think K. Rool should be acknowledged by name, and probably should put in an appearance somewhere.
Yeah, it's like I was saying about Diddy Kong earlier. I don't need every single Donkey Kong character to come back every single time.
Yeah.
But it's been it's been 11 years since the last Donkey Kong game. Think about how long it's been since the last K. Rool Donkey Kong game.
Exactly.
Way longer. And I feel I'm a little conflicted with this one because, yes, I do want K. Rool back. I would like to see the Kremlings again. But at the same time, I don't want to feel like I don't appreciate these new villains, too. These Voidco monkeys, they look great. I love them. And if K. Rool wasn't in there, I think these would be, like, right below him in terms of Donkey Kong villains. But it's just been so long, and this is your big comeback Donkey Kong game. I would like to see his main nemesis come back. Like, imagine if the shoe were on the other foot. Imagine if Mario had not had Bowser in a game for the last almost 20 years.
It would be unthinkable.
Could you imagine?
Right.
Yeah, and would people be out of line for wanting Bowser back in a new Mario game?
It seems ludicrous to even suggest such a possibility. And yeah, it would be one thing. It would be one thing, Dustin, if K. Rool had been present in either of the retro games.
Yeah.
But he was in neither.
He was in neither.
I never want the Donkey Kong series to stagnate or feel like it can't do new things or be beholden to the past in a way that doesn't allow it to continue to evolve. But yes, it has been almost 20 years since Donkey Kong's primary villain has appeared in a Donkey Kong game. And I think K. Rool needs to be making some appearances in the Donkey Kong series. I think it's past time.
I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Even if he doesn't wind up being the big boss, even if he's relegated to some sort of like King DDD status, where he's like, he's a factor in each game, but he's not necessarily the primary mover and shaker behind the plot. I know others will disagree with that and they say, no, K. Rool has to be behind it all. K. Rool is the Joker to Donkey Kong's Batman. He's got to be behind it all. And I sympathize with that, but at this point, it would just be nice to have him in there. And
right.
I will say, with all the Kremlin conspiracies going on right now around the game's plot, what we think it means, applying some deduction and common sense to the stew we've got going on, I think he'll have some role to play. I don't know if that means he will be behind Voidco or not. I'm not willing to stake my claim on that yet, but I think that even based on Cranky's nebulous dialogue, where it feels like he's creeping up to talking about K. Rool, but he doesn't quite do it, I think there is something there. And yes, like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, they wouldn't have pulled the ripcord and brought K. Rool back in that if there was some sort of vendetta against the character. Like,
they would have just chosen to not have him.
It turns out, like, Miyamoto's mom, her name is actually K. Rool, and he took it as a big insult.
Why do they keep making Donkey Kong beat me up in these games?
So I know that there's, debate, well, how much does Smash matter? I would say that it's not peanuts out of Diddy Kong's Pop Gun that K. Rool is one of the 3 playable Donkey Kong characters in the big video game all-star jamboree smorgasbord.
It could have easily been Dixie Kong. It could have been Cranky Kong. Characters who have had way more recent appearances. Characters who are quote-unquote more relevant than K. Rool. But no, they chose King K. Rool to be the third character.
And yes, that was buoyed by the fan ballot. Yes, that was really just driven by the community that made that happen. But you know who else are purportedly Donkey Kong fans? The people making Donkey Kong Bananza. So I can't imagine they would be like, "Ooh, K. Rool. Ugh.
Do we really want that guy? I mean, I know we gave him a sign in Mario Odyssey.
We did do that. That was our bad. We'll never make that mistake again."
Whoops.
All right, Dustin, I have been monopolizing this discussion. I want you to chime in with one of your hopes for Donkey Kong Bananza.
You know what, Hyle? I would love nothing more than to do that. I really hope this game has lots of great music. And we haven't heard that much music. We've heard some, and it sounded really good. I'm just hoping it's a really good soundtrack, because one of the things that hold me back from really loving Donkey Kong Country Returns is just that the soundtrack's not that memorable. And the best tracks, like, this is going to sound mean, but I think the best tracks in Returns are the ones that are just taken from David Wise's music. Like, the remixes are the most memorable because I already love those songs. All the new stuff, I remember the Rocket Barrel music. That's about it.
Because you hear it all the damn time, yeah.
Yeah, and based off of Mario Odyssey, and I don't know if it's going to have the same composer or not, but Mario Odyssey had wonderful music. And so I'm just hoping that we can get something really cool out of this game as well. I don't even necessarily need it to sound like Dave Wise's music. I don't need it to sound like typical Donkey Kong music, as cool as it is. I just want something cool that I will enjoy listening to after the fact. Like, Odyssey has tons of great music.
It's good that you brought this up, Dustin, because I've noticed that the fan, not everybody, but a lot of the fans, they sort of check out from even considering what the music's going to be if David Wise isn't a talking point. Like, if David Wise isn't composing it, then it's like, whatever, you know?
Right. He's not the only good composer in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think
he's my favorite composer for sure, but that doesn't mean we can't get wonderful music from other people.
And I do understand. It's like David Wise is legendary as a composer and has just produced brilliant Donkey Kong track after brilliant Donkey Kong track up through Tropical Freeze. But, you know, Grant Kirkhope did Donkey Kong. Eveline Novakovic has done some of my favorite Donkey Kong tracks.
Yeah.
And that's just talking about the Rare alum. You know, Graham Norgate did some wonderful bops for Donkey Kong Land. Robin Beanland did Funky's Fugue, which was just a repurposed Killer Instinct demo reel track.
But boy, is it good.
It works for Funky, let me tell you. And yeah, I'm guilty of this as anyone. And yeah, I do hope that the music really contributes to the pantheon of a series that is known for its wonderful music.
For sure. Like, I think if you asked me a few years ago, I would have been like, no, I want it to be Dave Wise or nobody at all. Well, I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have been as dramatic, but yeah. I would have been had my hopes a little more set on having that exact sound. But I think as time goes on, I'm open to new things as long as it's good. You know, not to throw more shade at Donkey Kong Country Returns, but that would be an example of just music that's just so unmemorable. That's just what I want to avoid. And I don't think we have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Already just based off of what we've heard.
Yeah, I hope there's some earworms. I hope there's stuff that will just forever be part of our soul.
Yeah, for sure.
Earworms or toe leeches.
I could do with some worms in general. Get some worms in this game. You're digging. Oh, imagine Donkey Kong's digging. He's punching through the earth, and you get attacked by a giant monster worm. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be horrifying.
That would be horrifying. Imagine a worm that could eat a gorilla.
Just an enormous tube of malice.
I can't imagine something I would least want to see.
All right, Dustin, I'm afraid of that, but I'm going to hit you with another fear that plays off your hope.
Okay.
All right. It's like we're playing chess. One of my fears, too many remixes of past tracks. Now, let me explain. Because we've already heard Rambi's Donkey Kong 64 theme will be in this game. Nintendo today has been using it as part of their like little short videos where they show off the expressions certain characters can make. They did one with Donkey Kong. Just a couple of days ago, they did one for Odd Rock. And Rambi's Donkey Kong 64 theme is playing over it. And that's a pretty deep cut. That's not something I would expect to be have a new version arranged.
Yeah, I never would have thought they'd bring that track back.
And I am fine with some iconic, or in this case, less than iconic, Donkey Kong music getting reworked for this game, because I feel like that's going to really make it feel like part of the Donkey Kong series. But I wouldn't want them to go the Donkey Kong Country Returns route, where it just feels significantly indebted to old music with minimal new entries, and the new entries that are included being maybe less than memorable. I was a Boulder Roller. I like that one, but
I could not even tell you. I don't remember.
It was a... No, I'm not going to hum it for you, but I want the game to have an audible identity of its own.
Yeah.
Bring in some past Donkey Kong tracks where appropriate. In this case, we're assuming the Rambi music plays when you're riding Rambi.
I assume we're going to hear Jungle Hijinks in there at some point.
At some point, yeah. I mean, we've got the direct throwback to the Donkey Kong Country games in that weird 2D section that we're seeing in the trailer and screenshots. So I imagine there's going to be some sort of DK Island Swing remix in there, and that's fine. Yeah.
You just don't want remixes to become like the dominant part of the soundtrack.
It would be like if in the entirety of Lagoon Layer you just heard aquatic ambience remixes. Just like that kind of stuff. Like, let's not do that.
I think Mario Odyssey does a good job of this because it does have a lot of remixes of past Mario songs, but they're kept to a minimum. It's not like any of the world themes are reused music. They're all new, but then like mini games here and there will use old music or just little bits and pieces. Like in New Donk City, there's a spot where there's a radio and it's playing like a smooth, loungy version of Super Mario World's athletic theme. Just like little things like that here and there. That I'm totally fine with. But yeah, I wouldn't want it to be a massive part that takes over the game's soundtrack.
Agreed completely, Dustin.
Thank you, Hyle, for agreeing with me.
Such an elegant point you brought up and laid out, and I think you deserve another hope that you want to see in Donkey Kong Bananza.
That's so nice of you to hand that my way, and just because I was my own nice little self, I earned this little treat. Thank you.
Yeah, a little Sour Patch Kid out of the box into your mouth.
Maybe if I'm good, I'll get another one later.
Oh, be careful. I don't want to have too much sugar before bedtime.
That's true. I'll be bouncing off the walls. But Hyle, one thing I'm really looking forward to, and we have good reason to expect this, is I hope Donkey Kong has lots of fun, unlockable costumes.
Ooh, fashion show.
Yeah, we know there'll be some. We've seen in videos, it's like collect these coins, or collect, is it the fossils? Like you get the fossils and you can spend them at the fashion shop.
Style shop, but yes.
Style shop, that's it. Yeah, Mario Odyssey has something similar where you can buy outfits for Mario, you can buy different hats. That is like such a no-brainer, easy unlockable to put in your game that feels so fulfilling still. Like, it just seems like such an obvious thing to include. And when I was playing Mario Odyssey, I wanted to get all of those costumes. I was like, I'm not even going to use like 90% of these costumes ever, but I want to own them. I want to have a full closet of Mario costumes. I would love to see Donkey Kong with lots of cool costumes like that. And I think the one caveat there is Donkey Kong is not usually a character that is dressed in outfits. So you can't really have the same fan service there as you can with Mario Odyssey. That one's filled with like tons of costumes from just various Mario appearances. There's a costume from like a Game Boy commercial, I think, where he's like a mad scientist or something. That's crazy. That's awesome. But Donkey Kong just can't have that. You can get some for sure. Like, I would love to see maybe like some of his Mario Party 2 costumes would be really fun. But because there's only so much you can pull from that, it would be a great opportunity to make some new costumes for Donkey Kong 2. Just put them in whatever you want.
Sure, you can put them in whatever you want. I was thinking, of course, the Skylanders jumpsuit, if they can use that. I don't know what the rights are.
Yeah, I don't know if like Activision owns specifically that look for Donkey Kong or not.
Right. Donkey Kong was just renting that outfit from Activision. They kept it. He put it down.
Hey, that's a rental. Don't get your hot sauce all over it.
He put a deposit on it, little security down payment just in case he wrecked it. But yeah, you could do a couple things with Donkey Kong. I've even heard about like skins. And I don't know if they would go that far, but like ACM Donkey Kong circa 1994 as a skin. Like that would be wild.
Mm-hmm.
Or polygonal Donkey Kong straight out of Donkey Kong 64. I don't know.
That would be cool.
That would be weird, but...
weird, but not unprecedented.
No.
No, in Mario Odyssey, one of the costumes you can unlock is his Mario 64 model.
Sure. But like you said, new things too. We could have new things in there as well. Sure. Like, what if Donkey Kong was wearing a powdered wig?
That'd be great. That would be real Bluster Kong energy.
Oh no.
Not that he wears a powdered wig, but can't you just see him wearing one?
I just like, what if he's in judge robes and he has a big gavel?
That'd be good. Judge Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do stuff like that. Like, if you don't have that many costumes from Donkey Kong's history to pull from, just make up a bunch of shit. Just put them in like a Woodstock outfit.
Sure. Well, also, like, talking about whether or not Diddy's going to be in it, Mario wore Diddy Kong's, like, skin in Odyssey. So, what if Donkey Kong, like, puts on Diddy Kong's clothes, gives them a whirl?
He's wearing Diddy Kong because he's a dead pelt.
Or he just puts the millimeter of flesh between his eyes and he's like, I'm Diddy Kong. Look at me.
Yeah, he says, hey guys, who am I?
Oh. Yeah.
No, but that would be great. You could also get in like Easter eggs to like have him dress up as like any of the other, like a Diddy Kong costume, get the Donkey Kong 64 Kong outfits in there. That would be fun. Imagine if you could dress Donkey Kong up as King K. Rool.
Oh yeah, that would be just wild because we're so used
Give
to
him the
K. Rool.
cape and the crown.
We always thought K. Rool would be dressing as a Kong as one of his personas when he came back, but what if Donkey Kong dresses as K. Rool first?
You know what? That would be very funny if you have Donkey Kong dressed as K. Rool, and then you stumble upon K. Rool dressed as Donkey Kong.
They do the...
We're not so different, you and I.
They do the mirror routine.
Even though it doesn't make any sense.
That makes no sense, but they're like, wait a second.
Is that me in that mirror I see before me?
Yeah, the Style Shop, I think people are sleeping on it, obviously at this point, but I think it's going to be one of the more exciting elements and collectibles in the game. You know, love to collect stuff. Let's collect clothes.
For sure. I mean, like I said before, that just feels like the easiest way to get me to want to collect your things. Even if I have no plans to ever use them, I'm like, I want to own every single one of these costumes for Donkey Kong.
Absolutely. Hello to Chocolate Milk Drinker, who has joined us in the live stream. All right. Well, just in time to get scared, I am going to be talking about one of my fears right now.
Oh, no. I'm biting my nails in horrific anticipation.
You better get ready to pull that wet blanket over your face because this is going to be on par with the Boogeyman. Oh, wow, I like that. It's like a Dustin Halloween decoration. Like you walk under a doorway and Dustin drops down and makes that noise.
And I go, "Ew."
Yeah, it's like, oh, you got me. You got me.
Oh,
Tis
man.
the season for
we all had a good laugh.
All right. One of my biggest fears is that Donkey Kong Bananza will forever change how we perceive Donkey Kong's world or universe in a way we don't much care for.
I think there's a not 0% chance that could happen.
Could happen. Let me explain. One of the pluses of the Donkey Kong series being so wildly ill-defined since the buyout, since 2002, is how the continuity and our understanding of it has just accidentally synced up and stayed consistent for 23 years. When people don't much care, then nothing really invalidates itself, does it?
Right.
And nothing has been overtly contradicted in the past couple of decades to the point that we couldn't just roll with it and been like, oh, okay, well, it's because this and that and the other. And now we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But Bonanza is going to have so much more in the way of dialogue, so much more in the way of characters, and a greater sense of place than maybe any other Donkey Kong game in history. And yeah, this could take a sledgehammer to some long cherished beliefs or just assumptions about how Donkey Kong's world works.
Yeah, that is true. It could happen, Hyle.
What are you afraid of, Dustin? What are you thinking of?
Besides
the Boogeyman. Besides the Boogeyman.
Right, besides the Boogeyman.
Besides leeches on your toesies, what are you afraid of now?
The thing is, the examples that come to mind first are things that I don't think we're really in any danger of. Like if Cranky said, oh, Donkey Kong, there you are, that useless grandson of mine who is the son of Donkey Kong Jr., who is my actual son, who's not here at the moment.
By the way, I never raised you.
I never raised you. I'm not the original Donkey Kong, actually.
I'm just some
Mario
guy.
And I are friends.
I said Donkey Kong Jr. was my son, but that was a lie.
Yeah. How do you know any of this is truth?
My real name is Bert.
That's too much. That's too different.
I was in Conker's Bad Fur Day.
You know what? I think I would like it if it turned out Cranky had actually been Bert from Conker's Bad Fur Day this whole time. I don't know if I don't know if I would love it, but I would be like, oh, that's kind of neat.
It would at very least recontextualize how we view Conker's Bad Fur Day in an interesting way.
I never would have guessed when I saw him and he opened that gate for me.
Yeah. I think Cranky was the big one that just immediately alleviated so many fears, right? Like, Cranky being in the game at all was just like, okay, characters are returning. Cranky speaking and, like, saying he's the original Donkey Kong, and you're like, oh, wow, okay. So they're going there. They're going there where we didn't think they were going to go. And they put us at ease that they're respecting the established lore of what came before. I'm not worried about any of that. Like, Donkey Kong Island is in there. Like, it's name dropped at the very least a couple times. And like that could have been just forgotten about in this new era. Like, it's the Jungle Kingdom because we're going to go with the movies canon. And it was
if you're doing like a soft reboot like this, not even like a soft reboot, but just like, you know, the first new game in a long time, that's the perfect opportunity to change whatever you want.
Yeah, we don't like Donkey Kong Island because an island called Donkey Kong Island is dumb and it's unimaginative and it's lazy.
An island shaped like his face? Get out of here.
Yeah, no, we're forgetting that ever existed. We're going to go with the Jungle Kingdom to create the parody with the Mushroom Kingdom, and we're changing XYZ. Cranky Kong is now a big metal box called Bert. And
Diddy Kong's now named Daryl
Kong, yeah. But like you said, I'm not seeing it so far. I'm seeing lots of acknowledgement of the past as we understand it. I think my fear that still exists is assumptions I have and I'm really fond of that have never been established one way or another. And the one that always comes to mind, and I brought this up on social media, what if Rambi speaks the King's English? What if Rambi, who I associate as a big, lovable dog, but he's a rhino, but in Donkey Kong terms, that's his dog, right? What if Rambi speaks with a very posh accent, or just speaks at all? But what comes to mind is that comic from that 1995 UK Donkey Kong Country tie-in magazine that they had original, like I think 3 original comic stories in this magazine. And in the one, Rambi and Engard just speak perfectly fluent English.
The pleasure is all mine, Donkey Kong.
Yeah, no, read it in full. I provided Dustin with a panel from this comic. Please read Rambi's dialogue balloon in full.
I don't remember if this is how I did it in the Rambi episode, but the pleasure is all mine, Donkey Kong. Happen to be in the area, glad to be of service, especially where Kremlings are involved.
Yeah, that sucks.
I do like his swirly knees.
I think you said that on the episode. Or if you did
swirls.
If you didn't, you brought it up after we were done. You're like, by the way, Hyle, Rambi's swirly knees, A+.
Have you ever seen sexier knees in your life?
No, like I can maybe accept some of the animal buddies being capable of speech. I certainly got over it when Squawks first started talking in 1999 because hey, he's a parrot, whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, Rambi, I think Rambi's idle animation in Donkey Kong Country where he's panting, it just really sold me on this idea that there are like tiers of animals in the Donkey Kong series, and you got like Kongs, Kremlings, bears, and then I know like later Diddy Kong Racing and the broader DKU and Donkey Kong 64 and Professor Chops. I mean, it really made all that nebulous. Snowmads, but I still like to think that the animal buddies, for some reason, are still just wild animals with cartoon eyes.
Yeah, that is how I imagine them too. I think if it came down to it, like if they said, you know what, Rambi talks now, I think that is something that I would just have to kind of shrug and be like, all right, I don't love that right now, but maybe it's something that I will get used to in time. Maybe it's fine. Part of me thinks this is something that could happen. I don't know how likely it is, but like we've seen that shot of the ostrich village.
Yeah.
It would be very weird if those ostriches didn't talk. And if they did talk, it would be very weird if Espresso couldn't.
I've been thinking about that, Dustin, hence why this is one of my fears. But, I'm not inflexible. I am adaptable.
Right.
I will learn to accept this new reality and this new understanding of this completely fictitious world that's all made up. And, as much as I love the notion of Rambi being Donkey Kong's big dog, well, we all wish our dogs could talk with us, right? Like,
right.
Have full-on conversations. We all want to know what they're thinking when they're dreaming.
Yeah, I feel like if it came down to it, that's fine. I think in this day and age, just kind of got to be flexible with whatever they throw at you, as long as it's not like, if they didn't say like, oh yeah, now Rambi is like a 6-foot tall duck.
They pull the rhino mask off and it's just a big duck.
Yeah. Yeah. And they say, no, this is how Rambi's been the whole time. You just didn't notice. That, I think, would be maybe one step too far for me.
Yeah.
But making Rambi talk, not a direction I would have gone in, but who knows? Maybe he and DK could have fun conversations together while you're riding on him or something. Maybe it would do something to endear us to Rambi talking.
Maybe. Just Andre has joined us in a live stream, and Just Andre posits another example of the lore being, or the assumed lore being sledgehammered, or my assumed lore being sledgehammered, and says, hey DK, it's me, Swanky Kong. I'm not your brother, by the way.
But just wanted to get that out here. There's no relation between us whatsoever.
I mean, that I think leaves the implication that they thought they were brothers, and then Swanky just did a DNA test, and it turned out no. And then we can have a whole other game about Swanky Kong's true parentage. They could go on a road trip together to find Swanky Kong's biological parents. I think that would be swell.
That would be great. See, that would be lore that I would accept. Like, first of all, Swanky being DK's brother was only ever a DK Vine fanon thing anyway.
It was a theory, yes.
But, yeah, like, that was never confirmed to begin with. But if they came in and said, like, they would never do this, but if Swanky came in and said, Donkey Kong, I got the test results back, we're going to need to have a conversation together after this game. And then it turned out they were not related. That would be interesting. That would be like an interesting story direction to take. I would be on board for that, even if it changes that fanning up.
Yeah. I'm just imagining Swanky Kong approaching Donkey Kong at some point in Bonanza. Maybe he runs a style shop after all, and he's like, hey, Donkey Kong, I just got some distressing test news back. I'm not going to tell you right now, though. I don't want to spoil your adventure. I'll tell you at the end of the game. And you're just like, no.
I would love if it just happens at a random point in the game. Like the story is not even like building up. It's not like, oh, we should go see Swanky and see what he has to say. It's just like you're running around in Ostrich Town or whatever, and Swanky's there and he says, "Hey, Donkey Kong, we need to have a conversation a little later." And it would be funnier if you never find out what it is. He just says, we can talk about this in private, maybe after this little adventure, but this is not going to be easy for you to hear. And the rest of the game, Donkey Kong just has like a slightly concerned look on his face.
It reminds me of when my uncle died. And, and I came home, nobody was home, and it was like 9:30 at night, and I was like, what? So I called my mom, and she was sobbing on the phone, and she said, "Oh, it's terrible. It's too terrible to tell you over the phone. I'll be over in 10 minutes." And I'm thinking like my dad died, or like I don't know. And I'm like, no,
right, you don't know. You don't have any details.
Tell me now the bad news. Don't leave me guessing what the bad news. I already know there's bad news, Mom. What is the bad news?
It's more distressing when you don't know what it is or the severity of it.
Oh, God. Anyway, my uncle died that night.
I'm sorry, Hyle.
You know what? I'm okay right now. I'm okay.
Good.
Yeah. Chocolate Milk Drinker says Cranky gives Rambi a speaking potion, and he just quacks. Honestly, if Cranky was just like, yeah, by the way, I gave all the animal buddies speaking potions and they can talk now, I'd be like, sure, okay, whatever, sure.
I don't know if I would love that or hate that. Part of me is like, come on, you can do better than that.
But part of me just likes how tossed off it is. And it also...
Yeah, it's like...
You know, I'm a man who loves a good compromise, and I love splitting the difference and saying, you know what, our past interpretation is correct, but going forward, Rambi's going to speak like Mr. Peanut.
He'll have the cane and the eyeglass, the monocle.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be great. Don't worry, you'll love it.
Yeah. I don't know why Mr. Peanut is my ultimate definition of the posh upper crust of society.
He thinks he's so fucking great.
Because I love nuts. I love peanuts. I love seeds. I just love the diet of a squirrel, Dustin.
Yeah, you want to be just like Conker, except for in the bad ways.
Andre says, Donkey Kong, they just re-autopsied Wrinkly's body to determine the cause of death. We need to have a serious talk about Cranky.
They had a re-autopsy.
You know what? Just for funsies, we dug her up and we had another crack at it.
We didn't get the high score the first time.
You know what? Every decade or so, we like to dust that off. See if we can do any better. Not all the time, but yeah, maybe once every 10 years, we revisit it.
We've been practicing. We've been training for this the last year and a half. I think we got it down this year. I think we can beat the Mushroom Kingdom's autopsy this year.
Super Mario Autopsy is the next 3D platformer.
Yes!
Talking about endings, or potential endings, Swanky Kong's distressing medical news. This is one of my hopes, actually. Not that bit about Swanky.
Not that specifically.
I hope Swanky Kong is with us for many years to come, despite his fiery end in the Super Mario Brothers movie. I hope this game has a brilliant ending. Let me explain why this matters. But
okay.
Well, it sounds like you're going to take issue with me.
No. I was just getting the giggles because I was imagining. I was just thinking about why is it better? Why do we like when Swanky Kong dies in a violent, fiery explosion more than getting just distressing medical news?
Because it's ripping the bandage off. We know what happened. It's like when my uncle died. He died in a automobile accident. So Like, just tell me that and don't let me just run wild in imagination land about, like, what family member is dead, how did they die, how many are dying, am I gonna die?
Yeah, how far does this go?
How far does this go? So there is something to be said about the immediate shock of something horrific happening versus just wondering what the bad news could be. But...
Right. Prolonged misery.
Yes. Talking about misery, let me talk about past Donkey Kong series endings throughout various games in the past. Now, I love the Donkey Kong series. Again, I hope I never have to prove that to anyone at this point. But
right.
I would argue that Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest set such an incredibly high bar for the series in terms of having a banger of an ending.
Yeah, I agree.
DKC2 was such an immensely satisfying ending. Both of them! Both of the endings in that game were satisfying, because there was the first ending that I assume some gamers, that's all they ever saw. The ending where you rescue Donkey Kong and you watch Captain K. Rool get violently uppercutted through the flying croc. Then you watch his body bounce down the rocky cliffs of Crocodile Isle. And then you watch him get devoured by sharks. Holy shit. What a violent ending. But so satisfying. You want to see that guy get punished for what he did to Donkey Kong. And
I want to see him ripped to shreds.
It's basically a snuff film. Yeah.
Right.
And you're just like, wow, I have some bloodlust in me. Okay, need to work that out in therapy. But for now, I'm just going to let it soothe me. Oh, yeah, that was some good flesh getting torn off K. Rool's body.
Right now, I'll just enjoy the ride.
Right, I'll be a little bit hedonistic about this, and then tomorrow I will address what the fuck is wrong with me. But then you got the true ending to the game where, surprise, K. Rool healed himself in the Kremlin source, the life-giving, like, earth energy wellspring of all Kremlin kind. And then you knock him into it, and then, oopsie doodles, it ruptures and destroys the very island the entire game took place on.
Oops.
Holy shit again. Double sacred poop.
Those are the best kind.
Both of those endings satisfied the long journey that preceded them. And it really did make my imagination go into overdrive in a positive way this time. Not when my mom called me, or when I called my mom and she said, "Oh, it's terrible. It's too terrible to tell you over the phone." This was like, oh, wow. What does this mean for the game's universe? What does this mean for the next entry in the series? Where are they going to go from here with K. Rool, with the Kremlins?
Yeah, now that the Green Man got away.
The Green Man got away, but wow. Wow. And since then, no Donkey Kong series ending has been able to compare to that ridiculously high standard.
Right. And, you know, that doesn't make them bad endings or anything.
Some of them. Some of them were bad endings, Dustin.
Yeah.
I love Donkey Kong Country 3. We are a pro Donkey Kong Country 3 family here at DK Vine.
Right.
But Donkey Kong Country 3's two endings? You realize that Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong were inside chaos all along, which... okay, shocking, I guess, but what? Huh?
Oh, a robot.
Oh, okay, they were inside chaos, and K. Rool was behind chaos, and okay, that's convoluted, but okay. And then the second ending, where the Queen Banana Bird had promised you that she would rid the land of K. Rool once and for all, and you're like, holy shit, I'm about to see K. Rool get Thanos dusted. I'm going to see him get atomized, reduced to nothing. It's going to make that little shark encounter in DKC2 seem like nothing, seem like a little bump on the knee.
And when it happens, he'll go, "Oh."
Yeah, that'll be his final utterance before he departs this mortal plane. But what happens is the Queen Banana Bird drops an eggshell on Baron K. Rulenstein. And
Pretty good, right?
He's like, oh, this is humiliating. Oh.
And then, curses foiled again.
And then Cranky tries to water ski in the background, but he's old.
That part's fun.
Well, okay, but as the payoff, as the capper, Dixie and Kitty just sit on the egg that K. Rool's under, and I'm like, what's happening here? What are we doing?
That's what it's all about.
Donkey Kong 64 had some nice cutscenes of the Kongs and even K. Lumsy unwinding after a very stressful adventure. But I don't know, nothing really felt final. Like, again, K. Rool is just bounced away by some seals.
Right.
And, maybe my issue is I want bad things to happen to K. Rool. That's why I want him in games so bad, is I love to see him punished in a horrible manner. But
yeah, DK64 should have ended with K. Rool in front of a firing squad, honestly.
The firing squad should have been the Blastomatic.
Right. Jeez, hit point blank with the Blastomatic.
Yeah, we call this the final smash.
They better hope he doesn't use his counter right when they shoot that laser.
And yeah, you had the jokey Donkey Kong Dolphin auditions, which Dustin, I don't know. It was forced slapstick.
Right. I think it suits a game like DK64, which has a pretty goofy, cartoony tone already. It doesn't feel out of place with that particular game, but, it's still not a great 100% reward.
Jungle Beat's ending was a little bit better, maybe? It showed the Kiss Kongs turning face, and they were celebrating with Donkey Kong and the faraway land Capuchins, the party monkeys, helper monkeys. That was nice,
That's fun.
I guess. That was nice, I guess. In the new Play Control version, Donkey Kong's got a crown because he's been deemed worthy by the sacred tree to be the ruler of those lands.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. Returns, of course, have the Moon Punch. I don't need to relitigate that. But it also had no ending associated with getting to the end of the Golden Temple level or beating Mirror Mode.
Right.
And no, that's no bueno for me. Tropical Freeze was decent enough. I enjoyed Donkey Kong using Frederick's horn to kind of bring about the spring, return vibrant life to Donkey Kong Islands. But again, no ending for beating Secret Seclusion or finishing hard mode.
Which is too bad because you get a cutscene for when you first start that secret world.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if they just had a little capper, a little something after. Something
special, yeah. Or, again, something that really fires up the cauldrons of the imagination. And, we go on and on. I mean, so many theories right now about Donkey Kong Bananza and how it relates to the Kremlin Lost World and the Kremlin source. I mean, DKC2's ending was so enriching for the series going forward. And it's just... I don't know. It's staggering to me that no other Donkey Kong game has even attempted to get that far, or get that interesting with it. I guess some people find the Moon Punch interesting, but again, it really just makes the world feel too elastic for me.
Right. Too cartoony.
Too hyperbolic with what Donkey Kong can do, because if Donkey Kong can just punch the moon, where's the struggle?
He can just punch K. Rool once and his face will explode out the back of his head.
Why couldn't he just punch Tiki Tong Tower and knock it down and been like, yeah, I'm Donkey Kong.
Yeah, don't fuck with me anymore.
So yeah, I want an ending for Bonanza that will put everything that happened before in a new light. It will feel like this enormously satisfying payoff for the long hours we put into the game, and will also make me crave a sequel like as soon as I'm done playing, like, where does it go next? Hell yeah, I'm on board. Doesn't matter. Sign me up.
I will say, I won't spoil anything, but I do think Odyssey has a pretty satisfying ending. I don't think it's necessarily the kind of ending you're looking for here, but I could see them at least doing an ending that feels significant at the very least. Like, not a Donkey Kong Moon Punch or a Big Egg.
Big Egg, yeah. I think I just want some weighty resonance in my ending.
Right.
Something that actually treats the material with reverence and a degree of serious. Like, Donkey Kong is not a serious series, and it doesn't have to be a serious series. I'm not looking for an ending with pathos. I'm not looking for something like The Last of Us or anything. But, like,
right.
Just something that makes it feel like this is the end of a long journey, and what a payoff. What a fantastic fireworks show that was. Yeah,
for sure. And, I think we just don't want an ending that's a completely throwaway ending.
Yeah.
Like, the egg in DKC3 really is like, oh, that's how we're ending it, huh? Like, even Donkey Kong punching the moon out of the sky, that's at least like a big bombastic thing to end on. That's a memorable scene, even if you don't agree with it. But
sure.
Just a bird dropping a big egg on your bad guy, and then it's like, yeah, we can probably just call it good.
The N64 is already out. We have to wrap this up. Fuck.
We gotta get moving.
Like, if we had seen the giant egg exit the cloaca.
That would have been one thing. That would have been memorable.
In all that ACM splendor of 1996, I want to see the egg getting squeezed out of the wonder hole, as Jeff calls it.
Yeah, that's really where they dropped the ball. They could have, and they didn't.
They dropped the ball by dropping the egg, but not showing us where the egg was dropped from.
What if it was like a mini game? What if it was like, the mini game where you get the banana birds from the caves and you have to press the right buttons in sequence to open the cloaca?
You have to really coax that cloaca open, right?
Yeah, come on. She's like, come on. Get that out. We need to wrap this game up.
But it's like one of those memory games, but it goes for 3 hours long. You have to, like, memorize.
You got to remember it the whole time.
The whole time, and it changes each time you attempt it. And the whole time, the Queen Banana Bird's like, come on, get there.
I think I would hate Donkey Kong after that.
Right. I would then expect something greater to come out of that cloaca than a big egg.
Yeah, this big egg that comes out of this banana bird cloaca better give me money in real life.
It's just an email address, so you can email Rare and say, I did it. Where's my check?
And then the email you get back from him is the Donkey Kong Land congratulations screen.
Honestly, that's a great ending. Because that ending is so bad, it wraps back around to being brilliant.
It is very memorable. I don't want to say it makes it good, but I do love it.
We need to have a poll one day. What is the worst Donkey Kong series ending? Congratulations, period, or the moon punch, or the giant egg dropping on K. Rool.
Well, what are some other bad DKU endings? There's I don't know if I'd count it as bad, but I think about Conker's Pocket Tales, just Evil Acorn flying out into space saying, I'll get you, squirrel.
I'll get you, squirrel.
Period.
I'll say a really good DKU ending, and one that I hold up right next to DKC2 for some of the same reasons, honestly. Banjo-Kazooie.
Ooh.
Because the tantalizing stop and swap ending. Yes, it didn't really pay off. Yes, I know, I'm aware. But in isolation, all that ending made me want to do was play Banjo-Kazooie more. And like, it's an ending where you're like, what the fuck? And you're like, yeah, I'm so in. Banjo-Tooie, yes, but also Banjo-Kazooie again. Let's figure out this mystery. And I think, like, yeah, just an ending that really just makes me want to keep playing Donkey Kong Bonanza. And I know that there's something just that really maybe even upends how I view the entire game beforehand and makes me want to replay it and experience it in that context of understanding that I now have.
Right. Part of me feels like it's a little too much to ask for. Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's just not really the kind of endings that Nintendo likes to do for their games
Never
these days.
Apologize for having high standards, Dustin.
Right. No, I'd love to see it. I'm just not expecting something like on that same caliber. It can be a very good ending all the same, though.
You know, I just finished the Star Wars series Andor, which is amazing. Just
Andor what?
Andor, a Star Wars story.
Star Wars Andor what?
No, I know the joke, Dustin. It's been done. Move on. All right, but it's just an amazing prestige series that just so happens to be set in the Star Wars galaxy universe,
right?
And it's, you know, it leads into the movie Rogue One, which then leads into A New Hope. But just in isolation, it is just a masterpiece that speaks so much to the world today, and also just historical struggles of freedom and oppression and living under authoritarian regimes. And I finished Andor, and I was like, yeah, that was just amazing. And my first thought was, man, I would love for the Andor creative team to do the Donkey Kong movie. So my point is, never apologize for having high standards, even if it's in relation to the Donkey Kong series, because damn it, Donkey Kong deserves to have prestige entertainment in its library.
It's true.
So yeah, I'm hoping that this game doesn't end with one of those ostriches in the ostrich lair dropping a big egg on the Voidco monkey or whatever.
And then it looks at the screen and says, get it? It's like from Donkey Kong Country 3.
Dixie and Kitty, who have in no way been referenced up until this point, drop down from the sky and they just sit on the egg.
You see Cranky jet skiing in the back.
There's not even an ocean. They're 10 layers underground.
Funky's really struggling to make this boat move at all.
Yeah, anyway. I don't think I'm out of line, Dustin. I just want Donkey Kong to be as good as Andor.
And if it's not, like, at the very least better than Andor, then I'm going to throw it in the trash. I'm going to throw the trash out the window. I'm going to burn my Switch too. I'm going to go online and really register my disgust.
And I don't think enough people go online and register their disgust. I think you would be a trendsetter.
I know, talking about something I didn't like on the internet, I think that could catch on.
The internet's just too positive. It just, I like this, I like that. It's cringe. I think
we're always saying that. It's cringe, and you know what? It's copium, too.
It is. If you could just introduce some toxic negativity onto the internet.
Then I'd finally feel like I'm at home.
Then that cake would just be perfectly baked.
Yeah, then I would like it.
Yeah. Just Andre in a live stream says, Bonanza ends with Odd Rock turning to the screen and saying, if Nintendo's metrics don't detect enough of you putting hundreds of hours in this game, the next game will open with Diddy Kong being disemboweled on camera. Not the twist I expected with Odd Rock, I have to say.
I did not expect him to talk to me and threaten me.
Yeah. But you know what?
I just thought he was cute.
I do like maybe the end of the game, Rambi takes off that rhino costume. It's a big duck, and goes shh.
And he winks at you and says, "They'll never believe you if you tell anybody."
Dustin, are we writing a Donkey Kong game?
I think so. It turns out it's really easy. Why didn't they do one for 11 years?
Oh, because they didn't have us.
That's true. It really is our fault, but we're ready to fix our sins.
Well, Speaking of sins, speaking of things not going well in one's life, I've got one more fear before we take calls.
Okay, you should tell me that fear. Whisper it in my ear.
I'm gonna shout it out loud because we're doing an audio podcast.
You know what, Hyle?
Yeah.
You really should shout it out, just like the theme song to Rugrats All Grown Up.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I've never actually seen the theme song for Rugrats All Growed Up.
Right, Hyle, wink. Haha. Yeah, you definitely haven't seen every episode 3 times and run a sister site all about it.
And Ramy's definitely not a giant duck. So, what if Donkey Kong Bananza is not that good?
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain. So, that seems like a ludicrous statement to make, given the pedigree behind it, given the high quality standards that Nintendo usually lives by, especially internal Nintendo. It's unthinkable, right? But a couple of people in the video game journalism trade have apparently tried the demo and walked away saying they aren't that impressed, or they're not feeling it. They're just not feeling it.
I did see like 1 or 2 people saying like they were just unsure about it. Like, not so much that they didn't like it, but they're not sure how they feel about it at this point either.
Yeah, I know Andy Robinson, take a drink everyone, I said it, of Video Games Chronicle VGC was one of them. Just like, Donkey Kong Bananza can get fucked. He didn't actually say that. I'm putting words in his mouth, but, you know, the general gist of it, the tone. I was reading between the lines.
Yeah, you kind of got to infer.
And of course, you know, this is purely anecdotal. I don't think these folks are being salty about it not being 3D Mario or anything. Like, I don't think we're walking into another should-have-been Metroid scenario here. I don't think...
Thankfully,
I haven't really seen that at all during this hype cycle. It's night and day compared to Tropical Freeze. But it is possible that a lot of people will play this game and the mechanics won't gel with them, and they're going to be like, yeah, bit of a miss that Donkey Kong Bananza should have been 3D Mario.
I mean, nobody has to like anything. And you know what? As time goes on, I see more people saying they didn't care for Mario Odyssey either. And Mario Odyssey is like one of my favorite games ever, like by far the best Mario game to me. But these days I do see some people who are more lukewarm on it. So, you know, it's just going to happen with any video game, really.
Yeah. I think where people are getting tripped up, especially playing the demo, and this is just a theory, I have not played the demo. So this is just me using my brain and trying to figure out what might be wrong. I think the gameplay is a bit more varied than some people are experiencing in the demo. Because I think what people are doing with the demo is they dig. And they immediately dig and just tear into the ground and just start burrowing tunnels like an earthworm, like a big tube of malice. And they're not really experiencing the full breadth of what the game is offering. And I think Nintendo is also encouraging the digging, the destruction over everything else.
Right, it's a brand new thing. It's a brand new thing to this game. So they want you to try it out, get accustomed to it.
And it's pretty impressive that they're able to pull this off, that all the environments stay destroyed, and it doesn't somehow, like, lock Donkey Kong out into this, like, just pit that he can't escape from. He's like, oh no, I dug too far. I can't dig anymore.
This is where I die.
This is where I die. This is where I join my mom/grandmom as a spirit. Oh no, Swanky's got bad medical news. He'll be joining me soon as well.
Well, at least I won't have to live through his suffering.
I think the digging destruction mechanic, it is being encouraged, but I also feel like there's more to the game than that. We know there's more to the game than that. We know they have roll jumping in the game.
Yeah, they wouldn't need to have roll jumping in a game where you're just punching and digging.
Yeah. So I think part of the problem is Donkey Kong Bonanza might be a game that you have to sit with a little bit longer than a cultivated demo really allows you to do. And yes, maybe that's copium, everybody. Maybe my opinions are cringe. But I really doubt that the team behind this, that Nintendo, would have that big of a miss.
Yeah.
I just don't see it happening. I just don't think that their quality control would allow a game shipping that's that flawed, that's that off-putting.
Well, especially in this day and age, like Nintendo's had, I don't want to say bad games, but games that people don't like as strong as other games in that series. Like, Mario Sunshine is often considered a weak link in Mario, or, Skyward Sword is seen as a weaker Zelda game. It's not like they're infallible, but I feel like today they're more conscious of that. Like, they want to make these games the best they possibly can be. They're not getting caught up on like the little issues that hold back Sunshine or Skyward Sword as much.
I would also say to those games, they were being directly compared to predecessors. Whereas Donkey Kong Bananza, if we're removing Super Mario Odyssey and other 3D Mario games from the equation, its most direct predecessor is Donkey Kong 64. So maybe my opinion will be skewed a little bit because I am just comparing it to a janky, lanky game from 1999 that we all have affinity for, some of us more than others, but has its share of problems.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not worried about this.
Another thing to keep in mind is, not to belittle these people's opinions who, weren't feeling the game yet. Obviously, they're entitled to that opinion, but, like, I see way more people who do love it, It's not like everyone is like, I don't know about this Donkey Kong game. It doesn't feel too great. I've seen tons of people who are like, this game is a blast. This game's amazing. It's so fun digging through this world and exploring. And, I watched that footage, and it does look like a game I will love. It looks like, not just being able to dig through all the worlds, but that does, open up a lot of exploration, which is something I love in games like this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everyone's going to have their own opinion. A game that doesn't gel for one person will gel for someone else. And again, who knows? Maybe it just didn't gel with them because, I don't know, the environment or just what they were doing in the game. It's different when you sit down and play the whole game compared to playing just a little bit of a demo.
For sure. For me, it's really hard to really get into a completely new game experience when I'm standing upright in a noisy environment. Yeah. And I know my time is limited. It's really, really hard for me to... Because you know how I like to play games, Dustin. I like to really savor each small incremental bit. I like to talk to every single character. I like to absorb the game's world. And I feel like when you're just jumping into this and you go smash, 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 break, break, break. Yeah, it might feel a little monotonous. It might feel a little bit lacking. But maybe talk to one of those monkeys over there.
Yeah, I like those monkeys. I like those fisher monkeys we saw. I'd love to, and the minor monkeys. I'd love to see more. When they showed that footage at the treehouse, I that was the first thing where I was like, okay, I love this. This is just like Mario Odyssey, where you can just like run around and there's just people around talking. It really makes that world feel more lived in, which kind of brings me to another one of my fears that I didn't bring up ahead of time. It kind of ties into what if the game is not great. One thing I'm a little worried about, and this is one I don't think I have to worry about, but it is in the back of my mind. What if the levels are not that good? like, the only worlds we've seen are the opening level, which is the mine, and that one makes sense for what it is. And then we saw the lagoon level, which is kind of like a wide open nature area that you can pretty much just destroy. You can just like destroy, just like rocky cliffs that you can punch through.
Uh-huh.
And one worry I have is, what if every level is just that? What if it's just putting you in like an empty playground to just destroy the whole environment of? And I don't think we have to worry about that, since we have things like the Ostrich Village. We have places that feel like actual locations rather than just being dumped into a place.
Yeah.
But, you know, until I see more, I feel like that just tiny little worry is going to be in the back of my head that could happen.
I do think that, like Odyssey, has like worlds that feel lived in and feel like they exist independent of Mario's escapades. I feel like each level, each layer in Donkey Kong Bananza is going to feel like its own unique environment and ecosystem. And
yeah,
like
that's what I really want.
And that's going to be fun. As you get deeper, are they going to get weirder the further you're removed from the surface? And like, how freaky does it get down below?
Yeah, I mean, that is like the big reason why I love Mario Odyssey so much is, you know, on top of just being really fun to play, it does have more in line with like a Banjo game where you're in locations in this world with characters who have like their own lives and customs in each world. It's just my favorite a Mario world has ever been. And I would love that for Donkey Kong. I would hate for it to just be, yeah, empty environments. We'll throw like an NPC in here and there, but it's mainly here for you to dig through and destroy. I would not like that. But like I said, I don't think we have to worry about it, since we've seen some things that hint at having more actual locations. And, you know, Mario Odyssey also kind of starts out with a level like that. It has that kind of Stone Age dinosaur world where it is just kind of a canyon that you can run around, test out your abilities, get used to the game in. And then after that, they kind of delve more into, okay, well, this world, it has these people living here. These are their customs and what they do. But that first world is just more for you to get used to the game. Yeah. So I could see that being the case here with Donkey Kong too. Sure.
I agree. I think it will be. I think it will be.
Yeah.
And I think having Donkey Kong in a game like that is very exciting. It's the game I kind of hoped Donkey Kong 64 would have been, where you're meeting interesting people who feel like they live there and that they have things going on in their lives, rather than, hey, Lanky, how about a race?
Yeah, you know, I tried to replay DK64 not that long ago, and, you know, I'll always have some affection for that game.
Of course.
It was shocking to me just how it's how lifeless that game is. Like, there's lots of personality when the game calls for it, but like, there's so few NPCs to talk to, and the ones you do talk to are, just, hey, race me, I'll give you a golden banana. And that's it. You don't have like Boggy and his family having their igloo in Freezeezy Peak or Hailfire Peaks. That is just characters who have a life in this world. They're not here just for you to do a challenge.
A filthy, depraved life, but yes, a life.
Yeah.
All the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oops, I choked on this Jiggy because I'm an idiot. Also, I didn't get presents for my kids.
That's my favorite part of Boggy. He says, like, I gotta go get presents for my kids. And then instead of doing what he just said, he goes home and falls asleep while his kids cry.
He's such a shitty dad. Oh, I love him. All right. Well, we have calls, Dustin, because people, they call in to the DK Vine hotline. This is what people do. I've observed this behavior. They call 1-202-630-VINE-8463, and they say, hey, DK Vine, hey Kongversation, hey Hyle and co-host, Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong, and then they hang up. So Dustin, here's the problem.
Okay.
We got, I was going to say 16 calls. We actually got 17 calls by the end.
That's more than 16.
That's more than 16, and 16 in and of itself were too many.
That was already pushing it.
Because we realistically can't play that many calls in an episode that's not dedicated to calls, because we would be here another 2.5 hours just playing those calls. And I appreciate and understand the enthusiasm. I really, really do. And, I tried to get ahead of this because I was like, we're doing a Bonanza episode. There's probably going to be quite a few calls coming in. So I said, people, please keep your calls to under 3 minutes this time. No multi-part calls. None of those. I'm going to call for 3 minutes, and I'm going to call for another 3 minutes and a couple 3 minutes after that, because we just don't have the time nor the budget for that. I can't afford to keep the lights on that long. But I was like, okay, that will at least help the problem, but it's still unfeasible. So here's the deal. Here's what I've decided. I have just decided for this episode, I am cutting the calls in half, right down the middle. We are playing the first, well, I guess it was half when I devised this. Now it's a little bit off, but we are playing the first 8 calls we received in relation to this episode. No favoritism. Haven't been pre-screened. They're just in the order we received the calls. Now, the hunger to call in and talk about Donkey Kong Bananza still needs to be fed. It still needs to be given little morsels so you're not going to bed hungry. So here's what I'm going to do. I have squirreled away the rest of the calls, and we are going to do another Donkey Kong Bananza call sack episode before the game comes out on July 17th. I don't know when, but we will do a whole other call sack episode for that occasion, because I realize this is a big deal. It's sexy. It's sexy to talk about Donkey Kong Bananza, and we all, I think most of us, like the feeling every now and again of feeling a little sexy. And so
we all want to be a little sexy from time to time.
That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like every now and then we want to get out of bed and look in the mirror and say, I look good today. And you know what? I want to provide that for you. We will play your calls, even the ones we didn't get to on this episode for time constraints. We will play on that call sack episode. So fear not, dear listeners, fear not. But Dustin, we do have 8 calls to get through, which is far less than we actually got, but it's still quite a bit. So why don't we go ahead and start and play that first call?
Hey, this is SnakeRider64. So you want to know about hopes and fears for Donkey Kong Bananza? Honestly, I think a lot of my fears have already been realized, because it's the new art style and the new direction, and it just being made by the Odyssey team. Even back when this was just a possibility, I was like, I kind of don't want a 3D Donkey Kong game made by the Odyssey team that plays kind of like a Mario game, because I didn't really like Odyssey. I wanted something different. I don't know. And so my biggest fear has kind of already happened. I still hope we get, I guess at this point I hope we just get the characters, the actual Donkey Kong characters, and I hope that their designs are not all horrific. And I don't know. I guess my biggest hope is that I hope this game will have something in it that makes me want to play it. And my biggest fear is that it won't. And right now I'm already kind of looking at thinking the fear might be winning.
Wow. Thank you for the call, SnakeRider64. To each their own. Like, this isn't like
fair enough.
Dustin just said this game isn't going to please everyone. It would be an impossible feat for that. I think For me, it's kind of been like, you know how you're slowly immune to poison, or so the theory goes, if you take small doses of poison, like for
Yeah, let's
several
try
years.
it out.
Don't try it out. People, please don't try it out. We don't want to wind up like a mid-90s UFO cult here. But
we don't condone.
We don't. That's the last thing you want to do, because here's the thing. You don't know if your soul is getting beamed aboard the mothership behind the comet. It's really just a blind article of faith, and there's so much to do, so much to see on this spinning.
So what's wrong with taking the back streets?
On this spinning orb we call Earth. And anyway, so I think for me, I would have shared all of your current concerns and fears and lamentations, but because I have been chasing this story since 2018. I have taken those small doses of poison along the way. So once upon a time, I would have been completely opposed to the idea of the same people who do Mario games doing Donkey Kong games. Never shall the twain shall meet. What is it saying? Why is Mark Twain?
I don't know what you're saying.
Why does Mark Twain not want to meet another Mark Twain? Anyway, I don't think I would have liked that 20 years ago. I don't think I would have liked it 10 years ago. But I got used to the idea. And then the Super Mario Brothers movie introduced this new look for Donkey Kong. And even at the time, I was like, I don't want that design to be in the games. It was still swallowing a little bit of poison just to get used to
I'm
the
picturing
taste.
Hyle just wagging his finger at them. Now, don't you do it now.
I think, and maybe it's getting older too. I'm probably much older than you, Snake Fighter 64. I'm an old busted hag, and I am first generation Donkey Kong Country fan day one, but also like I'm the oldest on the DK Vine staff. I'm hideous. I'm
you're good.
I'm a crone at this point, but but I have experienced the many cycles of this fandom and the highs and the many, many, many lows. And I think I'm just at the point in my life where I'm looking at the sand pouring through the hourglass and I'm like, well, it's either this or not getting Donkey Kong games at all. Because we weren't
that's true.
We weren't getting Donkey Kong games any other way. And it's not going to be retro. It's not going to be Vicarious Visions. It's certainly not going to be Rare. Doesn't look like it's going to be Playtonic. So this is probably the best case scenario for me, from my perspective, because it will ensure frequent Donkey Kong games. And I don't mean like annual Donkey Kong games, but I mean we're going to get Donkey Kong games probably every couple of years. And if there's a miss along the way, if there's a game that doesn't really do it, doesn't really check all those boxes that I'm looking for in a Donkey Kong game, at least I can have that assurance that, okay, there's going to be another one in a couple years. There's going to be another one in a couple years. Maybe Bramble Bear will be in that one. Maybe Trop and Scoff will come back in that one. Maybe I will get something more my speed in that one. And, I think even if you can't get on board with Bonanza, there is that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. I was saying earlier how much I adore Odyssey. I personally like you tell me that the team that did Odyssey is heading up the new Donkey Kong game. Personally, I'm like, oh, awesome, that rules. I'm so on board for that. But, people have different opinions. People don't feel the same way about everything. That's totally valid.
Yep. But look, we know so little about Bonanza, and judging from how Nintendo rolled out Odyssey and all that, I think there's still a lot of really cool surprises ahead of us for the longtime Donkey Kong fan and even for the newbie who just got into the series, I think that they haven't really even begun Bonanza's marketing, and I don't think they're really going to hit full throttle on it until the Switch 2 launches and Mario Kart World is out. So we have a couple weeks to see, where they're going to go with this, but I wouldn't give up hope completely yet. And if you do, if you decide this isn't for you, you can at least live vicariously through us and our opinions and experiences. They'll probably be more positive than you would like, but, I'm sure there'll be things we don't like about it.
Yeah, no, and nobody has to like anything.
Yeah. I don't like you all that much, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, same. I didn't want to say it until you said it, but I'm obligated to do this. This podcast is an obligation.
It is. It is. It's because the court order.
Yeah, which we don't need to get into.
We don't.
Here on the show. We don't want to make things any uglier than they are already. But but no, yeah. You don't. I hope at the end of the day you find something in there that you like about it. But if you don't, that's fair.
There's always next Donkey Kong game.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the call. Let's play our second call.
Hey, it's Sam, otherwise known as Rare Warrington here. I just wanted to give a couple of thoughts to the DK Vine lads about the upcoming Bonanza release. And, thinking about it prior to calling right now, my biggest fears are sort of slowly being ironed out. I think my biggest fear initially was kind of, as many people have echoed, that it would just be sort of like a jungle beat 3D. But it seems like, as far as the respect for what's come before, it seems all present there. I think right now, I wouldn't call it a fear, but the only uncertainty I have going into this is how much platforming, vine swinging, barrel blasting has actually kind of retained. Of course, we saw a little bit of the barrel blasting in the trailer, but I do hope we have a lot more elements of platforming. However, that said, this new era and this new direction for DK, both design-wise, gameplay-wise, I'm all for and I'm definitely on board with. Right now, I think it's kind of a matter of how much are we going to get. Some of us old fans, of course, I've heard people say a lot, are hoping for, and of course, more Kongs, more old character inclusion, and we've seen a bit of that so far, but with the Nintendo Today app kind of revealing the Rambi 64 tune and seeing Rambi's head and dialogue from Cranky there, I think we have, potential for a lot more surprises, and I'm really, really hoping for that. Right now, I think we're in a good position as far as us old, rare, eccentric fans go, and Kremlings or not, I'm definitely looking forward to this game in the new direction. I don't know what you guys feel are the likelihood or the chances of Kremling's past references. It seems the Crocoids and for lack of a better term, the Buzzoids are sort of more than reminiscent of the past villains. I feel like there's some lore there that we're yet to understand. But I'm just really looking forward to this game and appreciate you guys opening this line. And you, Hyle, and the rest, you guys have a good one.
Well, thank you for the call, Sam Rare Warrington. We know the roll jumps back, and we know barrel blasting does play a part. I think it's hard to translate what we think of as Donkey Kong style action, which is mostly Donkey Kong Country, in a 3D landscape. And so I think just like DK64 de-emphasized so much in the way of traditional Donkey Kong gameplay. I guess there was vine swinging, there was those weird hella vines, and you had elements of chucking barrels, but they were very cultivated small areas. Barrel blasting was its own mini game, and I think you might see a little bit of that in Bonanza, but maybe they're going to thread that needle a little bit more elegantly than we saw in the past.
Yeah. We saw that one barrel blasting challenge already in the Lagoon world.
Yeah.
Something I think about with Odyssey, and I brought it up many times. I don't want to sound like, oh, this game is going to be just like Odyssey, but, it's something to go off of at least. Odyssey has, like, tons of different challenges to do. Lots of variety in the different type of challenges in there, and I have to assume this game will be similar, where it's not just all going to be like, oh, this challenge you dig, the next challenge you dig. It's right. Like, I'm sure there'll be plenty of platforming challenges. I don't know about vine swinging. I could see it. I mean, they had them swinging on vines in that Vegas Expo artwork. Not that means for sure, oh, that's going to be in Bonanza.
From what I hear, Dustin, and I've never actually experienced this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but unfortunately, what happens in Vegas tends to stay in Vegas.
So you're thinking swinging on vines will be strictly a Vegas thing?
Yeah, whenever the Kongs are in Vegas, they will swing on those vines, but otherwise, vine swinging is out.
So if we don't see a Vegas world, like one of the sub-levels in Bonanza is Las Vegas, we can probably rule out vine swinging.
In Bonanza, but I have a hunch that the next Donkey Kong Country game will be set in Sin City.
I'm looking forward to it already.
Yeah, I think Donkey Kong Country Viney Las Vegas has a nice ring to it.
Vine Vices?
Well, that's Miami. So,
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, Grand Theft Auto's doing that. We can't.
We don't want to step on any toes.
No. Grand Theft Auto's going to steamroll everything next year, which is why it's good Donkey Kong Bonanza's coming out this year.
Yeah, I don't want to get steamrolled by GTA.
No, I would be steamrolled by Donkey Kong, though.
I think so. I don't know if I'd like it, but I'd let it happen.
He's got the barrel. He's got the roll jump, so he'll roll over you and then he'll like leap off you, so he won't be applying the pressure for too long.
Yeah, I would be in pain. Like, it wouldn't be a fun situation, but I guess I would be pancaked to the ground, and then I would lift myself up and be like, wow, I just got smashed by Donkey Kong.
Right. Classic Peter Griffin gag.
Oh, man, this is better than that time I was in Donkey Kong Bananza.
Wow, it's like I'm really watching Family Guy right now. So let's go ahead and play our third caller.
Hey there, Hyle and Dustin. This is Rick. I just wanted to call in about today's topic. So I was thankfully able to get my Switch 2. I got it through Target. It was a very strenuous process, but I knew if I didn't get it day one, I had to get it for Donkey Kong. And we're getting closer and closer, and my hype levels are building more and more and more. So, with today's topic, I figured I'd kind of go over some of my hopes and dreams and all that jazz. But let's see. I mean, I'm sure I can make a laundry list of things I'd love to see, but I'm just kind of thinking of a couple things. Well, I'm hoping the game will have like a sense of, if you'll be able to get a sense of tranquility. Like in the Super Nintendo games, you could just go somewhere, stand, listen to the fantastic music and the nature and just all of that, the rain maybe. Like, the game looks fantastic, it looks super fun, but I'm hoping we don't get away from that. I'm also hoping the game doesn't get away from, like, with the Country series, it's got like the tightest, best platform in my opinion. I love those games, I love coming back to them. And Bonanza looks super fun, but I just hope that it's more than just, because like I played Jungle Beat for the first time last year with the bongos, and I absolutely loved it. Incredibly fun, but it's also when it comes to Nintendo making Donkey Kong games, they usually go very bombastic, and so I'm just hoping that it won't just be loud. It can be peaceful, and then you won't just be destroying things. You'll also be having fantastic platforming, you know? Like those retro stages, the 2D ones, whatever those are, bonus levels, I'm not sure. I'm very much looking forward to those. This might be like defeating the purpose, but I kind of love it if one of those areas was also in 3D, because it's just, I really love the idea of just standing on a tree and just taking it all in. But, you know, I think that's all I got on me. But hey, I love the podcast. I always listen to it at work. I've been listening to it for years, and I can't wait to continue being a Donkey Kong fan with you guys. All right. Later, guys.
Well, thank you so much for the call, Rick. Haven't heard from you in a while. Great to hear. Rick wants some tranquility. Dustin, don't we all?
So, yeah, every day of my life I want tranquility. But, you know, I think we'll definitely get some of that in here.
Yeah.
Not to bring up Mario Odyssey again, but one thing.
God, Dustin,
I think
shut up about Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey.
I just love it so
Mario
much.
Odyssey that.
I would marry Mario Odyssey if it wasn't for all the DKU games first in line. But Mario Odyssey definitely has lots of tranquility. Like in New Donk City, you can like climb to the top of buildings, and there's one building with like a little pool on it that you can just chill out, and there's like lawn chairs, there's like other New Donk citizens there you can just chill with. So I could see this having some of that too. I mean, already I think of like the lagoon level that just already has like tranquil vibes to it
until you smash it to pieces.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can choose not to.
Yeah, I think obviously one of the big appeals of the Donkey Kong series, but this is mostly elevated from Donkey Kong Country, and even then we're probably talking about the original games. Some of the retro levels do this, but there's a lot of bombast in the retro stages as well, especially as they progress and the stage starts breaking apart in this cacophony of madness. But it is that just like the quiet contemplation one gets when they're in nature. You know, I love being in nature, Dustin. You know that about me. I'm a hiker. I love just losing myself in the forest. Nothing better than climbing a mountain on a cool, crisp day. But you get that in Donkey Kong games a little bit. You get that kind of just majesty of nature, and I do think we'll get that. I do think there will be elements. The thing you have to keep in mind, though, is it won't necessarily be this real, like, faithful or even exaggerated version of our own nature, because Donkey Kong is going into the hollow earth. So it's going to be tranquility, but in a slightly more ethereal sense. Like Lagoon Lair, I was thinking about Lagoon Lair during the call and thinking about how you could like see the ocean pour down from the sky of Lagoon Lair, and just how surreal that is. But it also is kind of comforting in a new age sort of way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't really considered about the zen of Donkey Kong, about how Donkey Kong should also feel like a day at the spa at times.
Yeah, and, you know, not all the way through. I think having a mix of those moments with the big bombastic moments is great.
Oh, yeah. It's that healthy balance that we strive for. And when you
nice variety to it.
When you weigh too far in one direction, that's when you start losing some of the charm.
Yeah.
But I will say that kind of element, those moments are hard to communicate in a trailer.
So, you want people to get excited. You want people to get pumped up for when you're showing it off.
So I think that's the kind of thing we're going to have to discover on our own and really appreciate and speak about once the game is out. So glad you got your Switch 2 pre-ordered. It was a harrowing night, that was, Dustin.
It wasn't for me. We just went the next day and got our pre-orders in at GameStop, and it was easy.
The next day you got our pre-orders in at GameStop. No, you had to sweat and you had to cry.
Well, we did have to get there like a few hours before they opened.
Ew. All right. Well, okay. You earned it then.
Thank you.
All right. Let's play our fourth call.
Hey, what's up, Hyle, and whoever else is on this episode? Bonanza's coming out. That's pretty cool. Pretty excited for that. I've been thinking nonstop pretty much since it got announced, what I think's going to happen or what could happen or what would be cool. And with all of the speculative evidence of King K. Rool being in the game, it's got me thinking of ways that he's going to be depicted or could be depicted. And I guess what I just think would be really cool in my fan fiction-y kind of writing way is, so allegedly he would be the person behind Voidco, right? So I imagine that in this game, rather than being a scientist or a pirate or even a king, he's like the CEO or maybe the KEO of Voidco. And this whole time while the macaque is on the phone talking to him, right, he's giving him instructions. And finally, whenever you get to him in this like big business building, he's just like turned away from the door, and then he swivels his chair around, and he's got his hands, his fingers, I don't know how you describe that, like touching each other. And he's like, well, hello, Donkey Kong. And he's in like a business suit with a tie, and he's like, you're not the only one that looks good in a tie, DK. And then he, laughs and is crazy, and is King K. Rool. I think that would be really cool. I hope to see something like that, or at least some unique take on what he's doing this time, because I would love them to continue the theme of a different dress up each time with the whole company theme. I think that'd be really cool. Anyways, thanks for everything you do, Hyle. That's just my idea and what I've been thinking. And there's a million other things, but I don't want to take up too much time. Y'all have a good episode and life and all that. Peace.
It sounded like a threat at the end. Have a good life.
Make the most of the little time you have left.
Don't join a UFO cult from the mid-90s, whatever you do. Thank you for the call.
That's good advice.
Yeah, it's great advice, honestly. Best advice I've heard all year. But, I think I've always written off, or at least I've written off since 2016 or so, the idea of business K. Rool. Just because Playtonic did it with capital B. But I have to admit, I do like two things about your pitch. One, KEO. It's so dumb. It's it's so dumb, it's brilliant. And two, the line about the tie.
You're not the only one who looks good in a tie, Donkey Kong, my rival.
Yeah, so I could see it for sure. There are some solid theories about how so much of Donkey Kong Bananza might be invoking a journey into the West, and how if K. Rool is in it, he would be playing up the Bull King or Ox King or Demon King from that story, depending on the translation. And, we've seen these treasure chests that the maps are in, that the Northern Hemisphere fossil maps are in. And the treasure chests have this like bull-like iconography, but they're also like green and gold. And it's interesting. I don't know. So could be a situation like that, but honestly, just having K. Rool in there would be a good time.
Yeah, I'm not going to be that picky. I meant to say it when we were talking about it earlier. Bringing K. Rool back and having him not be the big main enemy, it wouldn't be my first choice, but at this point, I would just be glad to see him. Like, I would be down if they did do like, K. Rool is also a victim of these monkey guys. And he's like, DK, my long-hated arch nemesis, we must put aside our differences to rise up against a common foe here today. And then he, helps you out to take these guys out. I'd be into that, too. I think for the big K. Rool comeback, it wouldn't be my first choice, but I'm so desperate for K. Rool, I'll take whatever they want to give me.
You have a thirst for K. Rool, as do I. I could even see him being like Donkey Kong to show that our past rivalry and grievous actions towards the other will in no way be an issue this time around. I have given Rambi the Rhino a speaking potion, so he can better communicate with you.
You know what would be awful about that, though?
What?
He says, like, look, I've given Ramby this talking potion, but I gotta warn you, you are not gonna like the kind of things he has to say.
I haven't really been a mad scientist since Donkey Kong Land 3, so Ramby now has Tourette's. Didn't know what I was doing.
I mean, that's better than what I was thinking. I was thinking he was going to make him have problematic views.
Oh, yeah, well. Then,
he's going to offer unwanted commentary on this trip.
Then at least Nintendo can just swap in Hoofer for the next game.
Yeah, you know what? If they did that, I think I would hate to see Ramby go, but I'd be like, you know what? I think it's time to get Hoofer in here instead.
It's a good thing they have all these spare characters, right?
Yeah, that's why they made them. They made, redundant animal buddies on the off chance one of them makes some tweets that don't fly in 2025.
All right, well, thank you for the call. I do think K. Rool will be acknowledged in some form or fashion.
Yeah, whether or not it's like a big role or even just like a little Easter egg. Like I said, like unlocking a K. Rool costume or something. It won't be just pretending that he doesn't exist. I don't think anyway. I don't want to promise anything.
The thing is, what is Cranky doing in the Underground Kingdom? Cranky with the shovel. What is... He's chasing
so many possible answers.
Some banana thief, and people say, well, he could just be talking about Void Code, but it's very, very like almost purposely ambiguous what he's on about.
I think the way it's worded is very interesting, because if it was these new guys, why would you be mysterious? But you could just say like, oh, those stupid Voidco monkeys stole all these crystal bananas. You don't need to keep anything secret. You've seen them already.
Yeah. Oh, you don't know what Voidco is? Well, let me explain Voidco. They were founded in 1998.
This goes on for a good hour.
Yeah, this is what they trade under the Dow Jones. All right. Well, thank you for the call. Let's play our fifth caller.
Okay.
Hello, Hyle. Hello, Dustin. Hello, everyone. Today, we are here to discuss our hopes and our fears for Donkey Kong Bananza. When it comes to hopes, I mean, I've got a lot I could say. I could say I want K. Rool in the game, I want Dixie in the game, I want this, I want that. But I'm going to narrow it down to one thing, so we're not here forever, and I hope that it sticks the landing. And what I mean by that is the retro games, for as much as I love them, I feel like their final bosses were kind of underwhelming. Like, you get to Tiki Tong, and he's just kind of a big head with hands, and you get to Lord Frederick, and after this awesome world with the frozen Donkey Kong Island, he's just kind of a big fat walrus, and it's not that interesting, in my opinion. And I think about other modern Nintendo Switch games like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, the Splatoon games, Metroid Dread, Kirby and Forgotten Land. They have these big, epic final confrontations. Your heart's pumping, the music's blasting, and it sticks with you when you're done. And I really want that for Donkey Kong. You know, I want something that like gets me all excited to the point where I have trouble going to sleep that night because it was so cool. And you know what? I think they can do that. This game seems to be going for a really bombastic tone. I think they can accomplish that. When it comes to my fears, I am a little worried about sort of the progression in the gameplay loop of the game. Maybe this is a bit unfounded. In fact, I think it is unfounded. I'm positive the game won't be like this. But I am a little worried that the structure might be akin to they plop you in an area and they just go, all right, smash some things. And you do. And they're like, all right, you're good. And they plop you in another area and they go, okay, smash more things. You know, like, I get it. The gimmick of the game, you can destroy everything. It looks awesome. But I hope there's a little more in the way of like skillful platforming and exploration. You know, I don't want every room to just be like an area where you destroy everything and then you're done. And I'm sure it won't be like that. I'm positive. I think I'm just getting a little paranoid over nothing. One other fear is that there won't be like other returning characters. I don't need 1 million. I don't. But I want some. You know, I want to see some other friends from the past. So I guess those are my fears, but I do think they're unfounded. I think we're gonna really enjoy what this game turns out to be. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the call. I talked so much about what I want the ending to make me feel that I didn't talk about the bit that comes before the ending. The final boss.
The final boss.
Yeah. Which, fair. I think that's what most gamers would gravitate to. What cinema awaits me at the end of this? I can't wait to put down my controller and not be able to do anything.
I can't wait to watch this.
Oh, God, Kino.
But yeah, I think I can kind of agree. I love those retro games, but I think the final boss of both of them just not that great. Not the highlights of the game. I do like when a game has like a nice, strong, memorable final confrontation.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, we haven't really seen deeper. I think we've seen what, like 5 layers and snippets of most of the later ones beyond Lagoon Layer. So it could get pretty freaky down there. I don't know what awaits us the deeper we go. It's honestly kind of scary, but I think that
no one told me this game was going to be scary.
I think we could be in for some, I was going to say kinky ass shit, but that has different connotations. I think the final boss is going to be at the like molten core of the earth. And it's going to be pretty intense, whatever it is.
Is it going to be a circus? Because it's intense.
Dustin, I told you how much I hate you, and we're only doing this because a judge demanded it. And granted, that judge was Donkey Kong wearing his new judge costume from Donkey Kong Bananza. So in that way, I'm cool with it. I'm making it work. But don't you ever come at me with that pun again.
Right. I think I broke part of the agreement.
Yeah, we're going to have to meet again. Our lawyers are going to have to reconvene tomorrow and hash this out.
What? You know what? I resisted the urge to make my bow tie spin around with a woo noise.
Yeah. And yeah, like the fears, again, fears we've addressed, that have already come up on this episode. I don't think the gameplay is going to be repetitive as we've seen so far. Like Lagoon Layer, I think it's just a very introductory place, and it's really what Nintendo is pushing people to experience is the destructibility of it all. And I don't think you would have all these other elements in the game if they weren't going to play a role.
Yeah, and I said it earlier, that is like a very small concern of mine too. Like I don't think it's likely that that's how this game is going to play out. But just because we've seen so little of the game, that fear is still kind of there. It's like, well, maybe we do just get like dropped in big destructible playgrounds. And, that wouldn't necessarily make the game bad, but I prefer when games have locations with a little more meat on their bones. Something I can kind of sink my teeth into, if you know what I'm saying, Hyle.
I do know what you're saying, but then again, I'm thinking, all my complaints about endings to Donkey Kong games, the ending I love the most from the game I love the most is the ending that completely destroys the entirety of that game's location. So maybe what I'm really after is to just lay waste to everything before me, and Donkey Kong Bananza will finally let me just end Donkey Kong's world once and for all and free me from this wretched existence.
That's the big choice at the end of the game. It puts it in the player's hands. Would you like to be freed from all of this?
You could go.
Or are you in too deep?
You can either end it all here and go back to school to become, I don't know, a veterinarian or something, or you could continue being a Donkey Kong journalist.
I think I'd do the latter. I don't need success.
That's true. I would rather continue to make a mockery out of my family name than do anything meaningful with my life.
Me too. You know what? It's not a glamorous life, but it's the life I know.
That's right. We're bringing smiles to faces with what we do, and if I had a respectable job, I think I would just annoy the common folk, the normies.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, did you know that the Northern Cremisphere is in Donkey Kong Bananza? And they'd say, please, just give me my results.
So sorry, it just reminds me of Swanky Kong right now because he got the terminal diagnosis in Donkey Kong Bananza.
I just love the idea of the game having such tonal whiplash just right in the middle of it, and Swanky's just like, Donkey Kong, do you have a minute? This is not gonna be fun, but it's a conversation we need to have.
The music,
or like
the music cuts out completely, and you just hear the whistling wind in the background, and like the color just completely drains from everything but Swanky as he approaches
his
you.
His voice acting gets really serious. It's not like over the top cartoony. He's just, you need to call me like as soon as you're done with this little adventure.
I know you're helping the ostrich folk, but please, I don't know how much more time I have.
And Donkey Kong does one of his wacky, silly faces he does in this game.
This is sounding like a really terrible creepypasta.
Swanky Kong entered the room and he was realistic and he bled from his eyes and Donkey Kong said, "Ooh, banana."
I found a copy of Donkey Kong Bananza, which really surprised me because all the stores' pre-orders were filled up. But this copy of Donkey Kong Bananza, I found it in the graveyard, the same graveyard where little Timmy was buried last year. Little Timmy, who drowned after the hurricane.
To my surprise, the red of the game case was not the plastic red of the game case, but the blood of the child.
Nevertheless, I took it home and I cleaned it off.
That was weird, I thought.
Anyway, I was too excited about Donkey Kong Bananza.
I put it out of mind.
All right.
I love really bad creepypastas. One of the funniest things in the world to me is something that is supposed to be scary and it's just the most ridiculous thing on the planet.
It reminds me, and we'll move on to our next call after this, but this is what really bad creepypastas remind me of. It reminds me of those Spirit Halloween animatronics that don't know when to shut up. Because the elegance behind a good scare is the fear of the unknown. Not really having all the people. Like when my mom wouldn't tell me my uncle died and just let me assume it was my father or me. And I was dead. Like I was a ghost. But
and she had to inform me of the news.
It's the fear of not knowing how something works. Why you're experiencing something so off kilter. That is what makes fear effective. And those Spirit Halloween animatronics that just go into these long-winded monologues. I'm Biffo the Clown. I got my start at clown college in
Biffo the Clown, the new Halloween mascot.
In Sheboygan. I went to clown college in 82. And I worked hard, let me tell you. I was going to be and you're like, God, just kill me already. Like,
did not ask for your life story. Give me the candy.
Whip out the machete and slice me down. This sucks.
Yeah, are you going to kill me or not, dude? I got stuff to do.
Anyway, creepypasta. Don't explain every little detail. It's dumb.
Right.
And also, don't be such a, unknowing little shit. Like, you got a haunted video game. At some point, you're going to have to get rid of that and not just be like, well, I kept playing because even though the walls were weeping blood and cockroaches were coming out of my mouth, I was so excited about that new Zelda that I just kept playing.
Yeah, the second Donkey Kong turns his head to me and his eyes go completely black, his head churns backwards in an unnatural way, I'm turning that off and not turning it back on.
I think we're losing the crowd. March Rose says this is quite the tangent.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. We're going to get back to the calls. Call 6. Get us back on track about Donkey Kong Bananza.
Hey, DK Fun. I'm, just calling to say what I hope for, what I'm afraid of with Donkey Kong Bananza. What I really hope for is that it's something vibrant and imaginative, something that even if it's not the same style as old DK, still matches, that kind of energy and is, really interesting stuff that just kind of fills my imagination and wonder, But the thing that I'm really curious about, because what I'm worried about is that I like 3D games and 3D platformers, but I much prefer games that are more linear and have more structure, which is a big reason why I love the old Donkey Kong games, and even the ones by Retro, right? Is because they're so constrained with like really tight level design that makes it, really fun to play through and, keep playing through over the years. And so with this being by the Mario Odyssey team, which is a game I really enjoyed, but I don't know, it was a little bit too much of kind of like an open sandbox for you to, get through how you wanted. That there was a little bit too much of that in that game. And so I'm just a little afraid that with Donkey Kong Bananza, it's going to focus more on being open, being able to get through how you want through the procedural destruction, and not really focus enough on giving you tight, interesting platforming challenges. So we'll see. And I think I'll really enjoy the game, even if it is more of what I'm afraid it'll be, but I do really hope they can strike a balance between the two. But anyways, that was what I wanted to say. I love the podcast. You guys have a good day.
Well, thank you for the call. I think we got a couple people now talking about this, how they're afraid it's not going to really retain that quintessential Donkey Kong platforming. But I guess I never expected it to. Even when I was thinking
it's a different kind of game.
Yeah.
I'm not going in expecting this to play like a Donkey Kong Country game necessarily.
Yeah, even when I was entertaining the possibility, knowing what the Vicarious Visions game, having a full picture of that and wondering, okay, are they going to be doing a 3D Donkey Kong game at Nintendo? And then after it was several years in development, I was like, well, they either canceled it or they're doing 3D Donkey Kong game because it's taking a long time. I never really expected it to be just 3D Donkey Kong Country. I think the only time that was ever really attempted was the first iterations of Donkey Kong 64 that we were never privy to. And,
right.
and even then, it wasn't really platforming in the traditional sense. It was somebody on social media I saw the other week. Maybe it was Joy, the formerly known as Kitty Kong Facts poster, Kitty Kong enthusiast, all the same, made a mention of how Rare's 3D platformers weren't actually platformers. They were adventure games or exploration games, where you help idiots. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of a good point. We call them 3D platformers because that's what the genre is labeled as. But Super Mario,
it's not like Mario 64 where you're platforming, trying to make your way through using jumps and stuff. It's more exploring a world.
Exactly. I mean, there's jumping for sure. There's some maneuvering and some obstacles, but it is really just existing in this space and figuring out everybody's problems and trying to find the treasure. And it's they're not really platformers, are they?
No, and Tui moves even farther away from that than even what Kazooie had. So
yeah.
I get if that doesn't necessarily land with someone.
Sure. I think, again, and I hate to keep harping about this, if you're really afraid that Donkey Kong Bananza is not going to scratch this particular itch you have because it has been 11 years since the last new standalone Donkey Kong game, well, then just wait for the next Donkey Kong game. That seems like a mean thing to say, oh yeah, you've been waiting this long, well, wait a little longer. Because I've had to do that on the Kongversation for so long now. People are where's Donkey Kong? And I'm it's being made, I guess. Just wait a little longer. every Nintendo Direct, every E3 or not E3 or Stinky Ape Summer, I'm yeah, you know what? We didn't see Donkey Kong. Doesn't mean anything. Like, we haven't crossed the point of no return for Donkey Kong EPD. Yeah. And then we finally got it, and, you know, might not be to everybody's taste. Because when we don't know what a game is, we can put any hope, any expectation on that fantasy. And so once we know what a game is, then that dulls it a bit. We can be excited for the game for sure, but we might not be as enthused as we were when the game was just a hypothetical or when we didn't know a single thing about it.
Right. And that's why I think, you know, eventually, sooner or later, I think we will get a new Banjo game, but those expectations are going to be pretty high. Not everyone's going to be satisfied if it ever happens.
Yeah, I think the new Banjo-Kazooie game, when that happens, it's going to be a bit of a disaster because people are going to hate it.
Right. I mean, that's true. You know, not everyone's going to be happy with it, but I also feel like that's not a great excuse to not do it.
No,
either.
no. Like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm just saying, I feel like the Banjo-Kazooie wing of the fandom, and particularly the Banjo-Kazooie exclusive fandom, the ones who aren't about the DKU or the shared rare universe, they're the ones who are going to be the hardest to please. But
right,
I will go into it with an open mind. I think I have my own Banjo-Kazooie hopes and fears for that. That's a whole other kettle of goldfish right there.
Hey.
My biggest fear would be not respecting the continuity and doing a soft reboot back to the first Banjo-Kazooie game without acknowledging Tooie or even Grunty's revenge to a lesser extent, or nuts and bolts, but also not acknowledging that time has passed. Not acknowledging that. Right. Because the great thing about that universe is the cause and effect and the passage of time.
Yeah. And, you know, this is getting off track from Donkey Kong, but I will say that's another... Banjo is another case where it's been so long and I'm so thirsty for it that, like, shy of, like, just doing nuts and bolts again, which I'd still enjoy, but I think would be the worst possible scenario. Other than that, I'm not super picky with what a new Banjo game will be as long as we get it.
Sure. Although that would be hilarious if they announced the new Banjo-Kazooie game and it was called Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts again.
Again.
And
that's
the box
that's a surefire way.
Yeah, the box art is just Banjo giving you the finger.
He says, "Fuck you, idiot. You'll play it." Yeah, I'd take it still. I'd play it.
We would cover it here at DK Vine, of course we would. Yeah.
I do think it would be like the worst, most tone deaf thing you could do with a new Banjo, but you know.
Well, I
want more.
That's why they wouldn't do it, Dustin. That's why that would never happen. But yes. Yeah. All right, let's play our 7th call.
Hey, just wanted to say that I think and I hope that Zananab from Donkey Kong King of Swing, well, not King of Swing, its sequel, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I think Zananab is going to be in it, because, I mean, you look at the banana gems, and they look exactly like Zananab's banana gems from that game. So I think Zananab is a shoo-in for this game. Zananab forever. Zananab will be in this game. Just you wait. Just you watch. He'll be there, and he'll show up, and yeah, that's all I gotta say. Thanks, bye.
Thank you for the call. Number 1 Zananab fan, Dustin.
Well, you can't argue with that. I think Zananab is a lock. You know, he's right. I didn't even think about how we've seen so many bananas in this game up to this point. Zananab is a banana, so I think he's they're hinting at him, right? They have to be.
Well, okay, so this is an early point of contention with Donkey Kong Bananza's rollout and the website, because the Banandium gems, Nintendo's marketing wing, arm, finger, leech encrusted toe. I don't know. Didn't know the terminology for Banandium. And so they called them golden bananas. The file name was Banana Gem or something. And I'm like, those are two different things. Golden bananas are from Donkey Kong 64. The banana gems are from Jungle Climber. The game is
Yeah, those are both things that already exist.
This is its own thing. This is like the vibranium of the DKU of the Donkey Kong series. This is Banandium, and that like the big bunches are called Banandium gems, but they're not golden bananas. Even though Donkey Kong says, or not Donkey Kong, but the like little sound effect voiceover says, "Oh banana."
Banana.
Even though they say that, it's a callback. It's a deliberate callback to the golden bananas, but they're not golden bananas. Golden bananas are the golden bananas that seem to be in homage of the prime golden banana that was later established by Donkey Kong Country Returns, housed in the Golden Temple that if you consume the flesh of will take you to the Cloud Realm, which seems to be the home dimension of Tiki Tong. Now, the golden bananas that Donkey Kong collected in Donkey Kong 64, actually, he discovered them in Mario Party and then went back and got them before the events of Donkey Kong 64, but they seem to be actual banana fruit, but encased in this golden skin that keeps them forever supple, as we would like our bananas to be, and they seem to be just a relic or a totem of people who held the prime golden banana in high esteem. And then, of course, banana gems are like extraterrestrial or something. I don't know.
You know what's so weird about that, Hyle, is I was just about to say all of that word for word, like right when you were, but you said it first.
It's like we're doing the mirror routine. Whoa!
Yeah. Is that me I see?
I would be gobsmacked if Xananav showed up. Okay, like
I would fall right on my ass. I don't see Xananab ever coming back. Then again, it is interesting that he showed up in so many Smash games.
Well, I mean, to the extent that you show up in Smash games, but
right.
I think that Xananav is just like at the most extreme outer reaches of possibility in my mind. Like I could see a Banjo and Kazooie crossover before I could see Xananav at this point. But that being said, seeing the Northern Hemisphere get referenced, that would have been unthinkable. Several weeks ago. And you know what? Like, honestly, who knows? Who knows what's possible at this point?
Yeah, I don't see this happening in a million years, but I don't think it's impossible.
1,000,001 years? It could happen.
Yeah.
All right, we have one last call because I cut off the calls after this one. We will play later calls. If you called in, we will play them on a future Call Tech episode. But let us now take our 8th and for now, final caller.
Woo!
Hyle and Dustin, what's up? It's me, Skips, the guy who freaking found the Kremisphere map in Bonanza. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut to the chase. I think my hope for Bonanza as a whole is just to see the return of King K. Rool. I think K. Rool is such like a big, important character to all of us, like in this community, and after like the success like he got from Smash, I think it's about time like he's come back. And yeah, and I think for my other, I guess for my fear of Bonanza is that I hope due to all like the Switch 2 like controversy with like the prices and all that doesn't like affect the sales of it after like Nintendo started to build up Donkey Kong back to what it was. Now people might not buy Switch 2s because of like the prices and all that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys have a good one.
Hey guys, me Skips again. I forgot to freaking hang up my last call, right? So you heard a bunch of like empty noise after. But I did actually have one more hope for Bonanza. I'm really hoping we see more of like the 64 Kongs or any other like rare Kongs that were pretty absent from the Retro Studios era. Because all you had were like Donkey, Diddy, Dixie, Cranky, and Funky. But where's Lanky? Where's Chunky? Where's Tiny? Where's all the other Kongs? I could definitely see them doing like what they did with Odyssey, where like you get to explore Peach's castle
and still with like Mario 64 references. But with that, we get like Donkey Kong 64 references, like you're on a whole DK Island type like layer or something. It'd be really cool. And also be really cool if we got like a pre-rendered ACM Donkey Kong like a 3D Donkey Kong skin of like the rare renders, like in that style. Like that'd be really cool. Like we get like rare rendered Donkey Kong like in Bonanza. You could play it like as a costume. It'd be really cool. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Have a good one, guys. And this time I'll hang up right this time. So catch you later.
Well, thank you for the call, Skips. Don't worry, I edited out all the awkward silence when you forgot to hang up.
Your secret's safe with us.
So, yeah, I'll address your fear after we're done talking about this, but the hopes of Donkey Kong 64 Kongs, or Kongs that haven't been used much. Now, you mentioned the retro era, but I was thinking all the way back to the buyout era and Pay-On and the Kongs they did not use. And 2 out of those 3 Kongs, Dustin, you and I just talked about this. The Super Mario Brothers movie made a point of bringing those Kongs back.
Isn't that just too wild?
Yeah. Pretty wild, because Chunky Kong and Swanky Kong were both used, along with Donkey, Cranky, Diddy, and Dixie. Those 2 Kongs, Chunky and Swanky? What?
Of all the ones to bring back, they would have been like at the complete total bottom of my list of Kongs I would expect to see come back.
Yeah, and I know that's fueling a lot right now, especially seeing how Diddy's new design does pull from the movie, how Donkey Kong's design pulls from the movie. Miyamoto had an interview with IGN when Super Nintendo World in Orlando opened a couple days ago, and he spoke to when he decided to redesign Donkey Kong, and yes, it was during the development of the Super Mario Brothers movie, and they decided to have a crack at it, and presumably when the reaction wasn't overtly negative to it, they decided to implement it in the games. So anyway, I'm just saying there's a lot of correlation between what went on with the movie's development and what we might see in the games. And I think it's noteworthy that they did use 2 Kongs who never got a redesign post-buyout. They never got reintegrated into the cast like all the other Kongs who did were in the Pay-On games and some other titles as well. But even Lanky came back in Barrel Blast / Jet Race. And Chunky didn't, Swanky didn't. But there they both are in the Super Mario Brothers movie with tweaked, updated designs. And it's like, could they be doing that to lay the groundwork so they have these new models ready for when they use them?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
like, I don't think that guarantees them showing up in Bonanza at all. Like, I still think it's pretty unlikely we'll see them, but it is very interesting.
I'll say the odds of seeing Chunky and Swanky are significantly greater than Xananab. I don't want to pour cold water on our big Xananab caller because, you know, I know how it is. You're really passionate about a space alien, and you might be tempted to join a UFO cult if things don't go your way. And I don't want that to happen for you, my friend. Please.
Hyle, my Xananab boner is so shriveling up right now.
Oh, that's a shame and slightly horrific of a visual to think about.
Right.
That's a creepypasta waiting to happen. My Xananab boner.
My Xananab boner shriveled up, and I said, that's strange.
I brought home a haunted copy of DK Jungle Climber the same day I started puberty, and then things started happening.
Nevertheless, I decided to continue with the game.
I later learned that little... I don't know, Yusef Gorbachev drowned in a well outside the DK Jungle Climber factory. And he started speaking to me through my Xananab boner.
That's weird. My Xananab boner doesn't normally sound like that.
So, yes, the big fear, probably a fear that has more tangibility than some of our other scaredy notions, like the boogeyman. What if Donkey Kong Bananza just doesn't sell well?
That's a good point. That could just happen at any time. The game could just be a total misfire.
Now, it could be for a couple of reasons. It could be because of the Switch 2 pricing, and people are like, no thanks. And we could be looking at a Wii U scenario where the new Nintendo console doesn't really have a good install base, and none of the games on the system really move a lot of units. Could be looking at that. It's always a possibility. I don't think it's going to happen, per se.
I think the thing is, with the Wii U, some people kind of saw the writing on the wall before it even came out. Just bad marketing, like bad communication on what the console even was. I think people could smell the stink of a Wii U failure, but I don't really hear that a lot for the Switch 2, especially with how many people were going for pre-orders.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be as successful as the first Switch or anything, but I don't think we're looking at like a badly selling console here.
I mean, the Super Nintendo wasn't as successful as the NES, right?
Yeah.
So,
but no one calls it a failure.
No, exactly. So I think that the Switch 2 is just a lot more communicative of what it is. It's a more powerful Switch. It's the next iteration of the Switch lineage, like a PlayStation 5 is from a PlayStation 4. And also, you don't have the problem that a lot of the Wii's install base were the elderly and boomers who didn't want another one because they just wanted the bowling. I mean, that was a thing. That was a thing with the Wii.
Right. No, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think the Switch 2 has that problem. Now, there is the fear that's, I think, something that Donkey Kong fans in particular, the poor Donkey Kong fan who's been toiling in the misery mines since the buyout. The fear that it just won't sell because it's not 3D Mario. Why the hell do we want a Donkey Kong game? Gross.
Misery Mines was my favorite world in Donkey Kong Country.
Right. Great music. A lot of people don't know that Eveline Novakovic did the music for that level and not David Wise.
And wonderful music. I could really feel the misery of those mines.
That's right. It was like getting a bad medical update from Swanky Kong.
It reminds me of that unused animation from Donkey Kong Country 2 where it's like Diddy solemnly holding his hat.
Yeah. It's like paying his respects to all the Kremlins he slaughtered along the way. No, okay, so Donkey Kong has been growing fairly steadily as a brand, as an IP even, over the last 2 years. The Super Mario Brothers movies and the theme parks, I think have both done wonders for growing Donkey Kong's pedigree, for growing what Donkey Kong is in the minds of, again, the normies, the common folk, the people who don't think about such things like, I really hope they don't cross-pollinate too many Mario elements in the new Donkey Kong game. Oh, they don't stay up thinking about this. They just know.
Nobody cares. Nobody else cares about that.
They just know they saw the Super Mario Brothers movie and they liked the 40 minutes that were all about Donkey Kong and friends. They liked it. And then they might go to Universal Studios for a family trip. And oh my God, there's a whole Donkey Kong section. We can get a gross hot dog. Awesome. Awesome.
Just what I wanted.
And then they might go home and be like, God damn, I love Donkey Kong. And then they might buy Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. And then they might be like, oh, yeah. And then they start searching for Donkey Kong, and then they wind up in our corridors, in our dungeon of despair, and they might then become one of us at long last. But I'm just saying it's a process to get there.
Right. They'll get there eventually.
But Donkey Kong Country Returns HD has sold very, very well for a port of an 11-year-old Nintendo 3DS game that's a port of a 14-year-old Wii game. It's sold surprisingly well. And
good for them.
I know, right? Good for you, Professor Chops and Tiki Tong, Mugly.
You did it.
You did it again. Every time we like, nobody wants you, and you're like, we'll prove you wrong, and you prove us wrong, and we're like, well, you got me again.
I guess I just have to sit here and eat shit, I guess.
I guess you do. But even all that being said, yeah, there is still the fear that people are just going to hold out until the better games come out. You know, Mario, Super Mario 3D shenanigans, and The Legend of Zelda, the Kiss from a Cockroach or whatever it's called. But they might do
Kiss
that.
from a cockroach.
I don't know. I was like Breath of the Kingdom or Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. What's the next thing I can do? And we were talking about cockroaches crawling out of the mouth earlier, and I'm just like,
hand of a rat.
What would that feel like, having a cockroach wheel around on your lips?
You know what? I could see, like, that's the big new thing. Link is like, oh, I have a little cockroach friend. Oh, the cockroach turns out to be the king of Hyrule.
Yeah, damn. Are we doing it? Are we writing the next Zelda game? Is this happening?
I think so.
Oh my god!
Doing video games is easy.
Anyway, I think the pressure is off Bonanza a little bit because Switch 2 is launching with Mario Kart World, which is like the surefire thing to launch the system with. Just based on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's sales. Yeah.
Right.
It's the smart thing. Like, Donkey Kong doesn't have all of this resting on his shoulders. He doesn't. So, even though Donkey Kong is the big adventure, the big first adventure for the Switch 2, which is an unusual position for Donkey Kong to be in, I don't think we need to worry all that much. I think the Switch 2 is going to sell well. And I think people are going to be picking up Donkey Kong Bananza because, yeah, surprise, surprise, Donkey Kong's kind of shit hot right now. I know in the online Nintendo bubble that hasn't really set in yet. And I know that a lot of Donkey Kong fans, we just feel the residual energy from like the main Nintendo talking points in the Nintendo communities that you frequent. But Donkey Kong is shit hot right now. And I think Bonanza is coming out at just the right time. Just the right time to ride that. And I also think that if it were any other studio outside of Nintendo EPD, there might be some healthy skepticism among the broader Nintendo fandom. Like, oh god, it's another damn Donkey Kong. We got a new Donkey Kong game 11 years ago. Why are they doing this?
Another one so soon.
But because the people behind 3D Mario are behind this, and thankfully, in this one instance, the association Donkey Kong has with the Mario brand, which has really been the Trojan horse that's gotten us in so many households recently. The Super Mario Brothers movie, that alone did more for Donkey Kong's brand than anything since Donkey Kong Country in 1994.
Yeah.
So I think it's enough to get Bonanza over the finish line and sell really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that it's one of the first games for the Switch 2, there's going to be a high attach rate to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's one of the games that's out the longest of the Switch 2's lifespan. It's just going to be one of those, if you get a Switch 2, you're probably going to get Donkey Kong.
That's right. It'll have the entire lifespan of the system to move units, to sell copies, to get people to download it. Usually Donkey Kong comes in towards the end of a console's life, and you're like, oh, Donkey Kong, you have like 1 year to sell well, or you're going to be a complete failure. And Donkey Kong's like, oh shit,
fuck,
oh, I better have just the most amazing graphics this generation has ever seen. Oh, I better come with an expansion pack because this game is just too big to run without it. Oh, I have to have some sort of big hook. Oh no. And in this case, Donkey Kong can just sit back, take it easy, and let everything do the work for him for once.
Yeah, he's kind of in a good spot to take the pressure off.
Yeah. Just like I am happy that Donkey Kong takes the pressure off my back when he steamrolls over me and then does a roll jump. Doesn't stay on my back for too long. Just cracks it enough that it alleviates any back pain from hauling those massive backpacks full of books in my school years, and then he's off.
And he says, okay.
And then you can just sit back and enjoy and really savor the cockroach wiggling around on your lips, who's actually the king of Hyrule.
As it turns out.
All right, Dustin, let's do this. Exterior, Hyrule Field, midday.
Okay, midday.
A cockroach wiggles around on Link's lips. That's all I have so
Link
far.
is sleeping in the field, and the cockroach wiggles around on his lips. Link stirs as if from a dream. He goes, huh? And he sees the cockroach in front of him. And then its eyes start to bleed.
Oh no, it's creepy.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.